Hello, welcome to CGTN. This is our special coverage on China's annual political season, the two sessions. Live from Beijing, I'm Pandong.
And I'm Wang Mengmang. Lawmakers will wrap up their session at the Great Hall of the People today. After about a week of deliberation, deputies of the National People's Congress, or NPC, will vote on the draft plans and decisions on social and economic development.
Lawmakers will also vote on major issues of governmental work for the year 2024. NPC Standing Committee Chairman Zhao Leji will address the closing meeting.
And joining us here for some more analysis, we have two guests. Mr. Jens Eskelon, the president of the European Union Chamber of Commerce in China. Great to have you. And also Mr. Zhu Ning, he's head of China at the Brunswick Group. Thank you for joining us on our special program.
And our special coverage is being live streamed on our social media platforms. You can also log on to CGTN app. To stay tuned.
That's right, and let's now check in the latest with our reporter as the third Deputies Corridor of this year's two sessions will begin soon. It is a platform to give the media direct access to the country's leading advisors. And now we're joined by Xu Xinchen live from the Great Hall of the People. Xinchen, great to see you there. Bring us the latest.
Absolutely, Mama. So it has been a very busy week for deputies for China's National People's Congress, and that is going to conclude later this afternoon, during which the deputies are going to vote on 7 drafts, and that of course include the government work report delivered by Premier Li Qiang at the very beginning of the NPC session this year, and also other works reports, for example, on the Standing Committee of the NPC and the Supreme People's Court, and there will be other documents that delve into China's economic and societal developments to wrap up 2023 and of course to look into the future for 2024. And behind me it is the Deputy Corridor, and that will hold the last session for deputies to take questions from the media. And earlier I did get a little sneak peek into the rehearsals, and I saw deputies wearing traditional costumes from representing China's minority groups rehearsing there, and I am expecting there will be deputies representing minority group here in China are going to take questions from the media. And I need to be honest on this. So speaking of all the traditional attire and traditional costumes deputies from China's minority groups are wearing to attend this very serious and political season here in China, some would add more fun to the event, actually, that also representing the diverse culture and inclusiveness of China, and of course this event. And the whole process, people's democracy is always the upholding principle for China's National People's Congress. And the high quality development is of course still the key focus for China's economic development. But then the buzzword for this year has to be a new term, new quality productive forces. And what are they? I've been speaking to NPC deputies, and they've been agreeing on that anything, achievements or boosters coming out of the process for China's pursuit of high quality development can be considered this new quality productive forces. The around 5% GDP growth set for 2024 is achievable according to NPC deputies I've spoken to, and they are also admitting that there is some headwind the country is facing. For example, risks in real estate market, financial risks, and China is facing an aging population, and the deputies have been actually discussing these topics in depth so that they can find solutions to tackle these development challenges. And hopefully that we're going to hear more from the closing ceremony very soon later this afternoon.
Sure. Thank you so much, Xinchen, for bringing us up to date from the venue of the closing session of the NPC. And now let's get some analysis with our studio guests here, because really the development targets have been set, and then this blueprint has been rolled out for the country's development. And then for the specific missions and tasks, we'll be looking at how the deputies will be taking questions and address the public concerns. What will be the items topping your list, Mr. Zhu Ning?
Well, I think probably 3 main areas. One is, of course, about the economy. I think people are concerned and interested in, well, how fast China's economy is going to grow and where will the drivers be behind such a growth target. And the second is, I think people have been paying a lot of attention to employment, especially the employment among the young generation. So I think in the work report, I think we intend to generate more than 12 million jobs in this year. And I think in a somewhat slower economy, I think people will be wondering, well, what are the specific actions which the government will take to generate that kind of growth? And the third thing is, I think people are, very interested in, again, falling back on the economy side, about the stimulus, or so to speak, or the more active fiscal policies in a way about, well, I think we're pledging another 1 trillion special bond coming from the Treasury. And with that, I think how can we better utilize that kind of financing and how to drive the economy on a more sustainable and also high quality basis.
So, Mr. Askelund, are those your topics, your concerned topics too?
Well, I very much agree with Professor Zhu, but there are a few other things also that I think were quite interesting and important. I like the discussion about hukou reform. I think it's the right thing. I think it's something that can add momentum also to the Chinese economy and labor market. I also found positives in the discussion about skilled labor. There's an estimate that China might need next year 30 million skilled laborers, and we have to recognize that China is today very much a manufacturing economy, and if you cannot find your skilled laborers, that is going to impact your ability to produce. So trying to sort of increase the status, the incomes and the skill sets of the population engaged in manufacturing will be very important going forward.
And the overarching goal of high quality development, and then we are seeing some specific policies trying to promote endeavors working towards that goal. For example, there was a lot of mention about the new quality productive forces where science and technology are taking leading role. So what are some of the benefits or prospects you envision in this China's modernization drive towards that goal?
Well, I think it is very, very important in a way about, we all know the traditional factors that go into economic growth are labor, land, and capital. But then I think what's more and more important is how do we put those three key ingredients together to make the economy work. So in that, I think the technology and science development, I think, has been the driving force for the human race for the past century or so. And I think in China's context, I think there are three major areas which we can really pin our hope on. One is on renewable energy. I think China has already been leading the whole world in new energy vehicles and in the infrastructure of storage of battery and energy storage. So I think that is one area which will make the country greener, more sustainable, and more environmentally friendly. So I think that is one area which I pin my hope on. The second area, which I think is very important, is healthcare, broadly defined. China is growing wealthier and the population is also aging. So for that, I think both the wealth side and the aging side is boding very well for, a lot of new science and technology development, which is not just elongating people's lives, but also improving the quality, and people can age well and age more healthily. So I think that's another area which I was really looking forward to. The third part, which I think has been featured a lot overseas, but I think really in the space of aerospace exploration, I think China has more and more of both state-owned and private companies which are dedicating themselves to trying to develop science and technology, which will bring human race to outer space, which is one thing which I think, even if I cannot do it in my own lifetime, I think I would really be excited to see my kids' generation having the privilege of doing that.
So, Mr. Zhu, let me follow up on the new quality productive forces topic. Let's also remember that President Xi Jinping also emphasized that it's not something you can create it overnight or sheerly from vacuum. It must be based on the conditions of a given environment. So what about Shanghai? I know you spend a lot of time there. We know it's a traditional Chinese industrial and manufacturing base, and in recent decades, it's been at the forefront of China's opening up, quite strong in the financial sector, and also some emerging sectors like biopharma and things like that. So what Shanghai would do in this bit?
I think Shanghai is both very representative of the rest of the country, but also very unique in many different regards, given its roots, given its international exposure, and also given its professionalism, so to speak. So I happen to be teaching in a university in Shanghai for the past 15 years or so, and I think I was really impressed by, how far Shanghai has developed as a city and also as China's portal, to the rest of the world. So I think there are several areas which I can imagine. One is the high-end manufacturing and high-end service industry, in particular the financial service industry. I mean, in a way, finance is the bloodline of the modern economy. So how can we utilize Shanghai's role as a global financial center to better finance and propel the real economy? I think that's very important. And two is Shanghai has been trying very hard, which falls into Yan's expertise, a global shipping center. I think that is very important by creating the interconnectivity between China and the rest of the world. And then I think another goal on Shanghai's agenda is trying to become a science and innovation center, which I think with the help of finance and with a lot of high caliber talents, I think that is also the future, which again, going back to the high quality productive force, I think that is the way that China has been going a long way in utilizing cheap labor, cheap land, not so much protection of the environment, but now I think it is really a new page for China's economic growth in trying to really put everything together and make 1 + 1 far greater than 2.
And this renewed focus on science and technology, Mr. Escalante, will have international implications, of course. How will that policy or that endeavor reshape China's relationship with the rest of the world, for example, with Europe? Will the relationship becoming more complementary or competitive in this regard?
It's a very good question, and let me say first of all that I think it's a very natural development. We have seen that labor cost has increased quite significantly in China as the country develops, and that's a good thing. But it also means that China continually needs to improve on its productivity. It needs to climb the value ladder. So a lot of the labor-intensive, low-value-added industries are beginning to move out of China, and that necessitates an increased focus on these more sophisticated products. So that's all very good. As to your question, how that affects the relationship with Europe, I think it's both a great opportunity, but it's also a big challenge. Of course, China is today indispensable for Europe in its quest to reduce its impact on the climate, and China is a leader within EV, within batteries, within wind and solar and so on. But we also see that within many of these areas, whether it's EV, whether it's batteries, whether it's solar or wind, there is already today massive overcapacity. And that means if there are continued investment into these areas, some companies will go out of business simply because the demand is not there. Or the prices will become so depressed that everyone will lose out. So it'll be very important going forward, and also in regards to the relationship with Europe, that a balance is being found. So they're not, over-investment in these areas, which eventually is going to hurt everyone. And in that regard, it was pleasing also to hear that overcapacity is something that the leaders are also concerned about. And I think making sure you get the balance between supply and demand exactly right will be key to also maintain a good relationship. And let's not forget, the relationship between Europe and China has created so much value for both China and for Europe. We believe that there's significant potential also going forward. And that's the reason that it's so important that we begin to look at those issues that are today creating tension. Here, and not least, getting the balance between supply and demand right.
Tell us a little bit more about the potential side. What sectors, as a European representative here, do you see in bilateral terms?
I think you mentioned the areas before related to these new technologies. Certainly anything related to decarbonization. My day job is as chief representative of Maersk, a shipping company, and we are now beginning to transition into green fuels. And the place where we have been able to find the green fuel, green methanol, at the right scale, at the right quantities, and at the right price, that has been here in China. A lot of these companies will be European companies, but a lot of that fuel will be sourced here in China. And think about it, this is actually the first time that you begin to see China also becoming an exporter of fuels. So that's an entire new area. So definitely the potential is there. But we need also to make sure that there's a balance. And we saw how in the past few years that the trade imbalance has grown very, very large and probably not sustainable. So we need to look at, how can we bring a little bit balance back in the relationship? But the potential is there, definitely.
So is Europe willing to export more value-added, high-tech products to China?
I think Europe is exporting as much as it can, even amongst the high-tech products. I think a company like ASML, they had the highest export last year to China ever. But I think when you look at it from an absolute perspective, and I'm in container shipping, we can see that actually if you compare to 5 years ago, European exports to China has declined, whereas Chinese exports to China has grown very considerable. Part of the reason is that European companies today do not have access to public procurement. And that's where we hope to see, and have already seen this year.
Indeed. We'll be talking more about that later in our program.
Let me just jump in here because we have the latest from the venue of the closing session. Deputies of the National People's Congress, or NPC, are about to meet the press and take questions from reporters.
14届全国人大2次会议
The third Deputies Corridor of the second session of the 14th NPC now begins. The press center of the conference has invited 6 representatives from the fields of education, medicine, and culture to the corridor to take your questions. Now let's bring the first batch of deputies. They are representative and community manager from Cixi Power Supply Bureau of State Grade Zhejiang, Qian Haijun, and Ma Xiuying from Gansu Province. Now the floor is open.
请远端红色套装的女士提问，谢谢。
谢谢。
And with Zhejiang Daily, my question is to Qian Haijun. You are from the power industry and you're also a craftsman. So can you share with us your story? How do you light up people's household and deliver tangible services to people? Thank you. I'm from the Zhejiang delegation. My name is Qian Haijun. I'm a grassroots community manager from the Cixi Power Supply Bureau. I have been working in this industry for 33 years. It is also the 25th year of me engaged in philanthropy and charity. You may wonder, what is driving me and motivating me to be engaged at the community? I think it's responsibility and love. And this gives me a lot of pride and happiness. And when I'm serving the community, I found out that there are a great number of elderly citizens in the cities. Some of them are retired, and some of them are not living with their children. And when they have a power outage, they need someone to help them. As a communist member, we need to deliver services to where they're most needed. So that is why I worked out 500 convenience contact cards and distributed them amongst the households. So whenever they run into any problems, they can get in contact with me. And when I was providing services, I found out that there were safety hazards in terms of electricity. And sometimes the proportion of this hazard can reach 40%. And there's a significant amount of task in terms of renovation and upgrading. I myself cannot deliver the whole service, so that's why I set up the Qian Haijun volunteer team to mobilize volunteers to help people change their light bulb and repair the power outages. And we have traveled in Xizang, Guilin, and other places of Yunnan, and our service has covered more than 70,000 people. When I see people's homes lit up, and when I see the smells of those we served, we felt very happy. I also found out that there's a lack of people at the community level and at the grassroots level, and that is why in Xizang we have worked out a plan to cultivate engineers for the villages, so that the young people, they can take roots in the villages and help construct their homes. And over the years, cities, communities, and villages, we have scaled up our electricity-related services. We're also working together with the People's Court, the Education Bureau, and community offices and power supply bureaus, so that whenever we receive a request from the public, we can immediately deliver the services. Over the years, I was given a lot of the titles. For example, I'm an NPC deputy and also a deputy to China National Workers Union. I hope that more and more people can come to us and deliver services to people around themselves. And next year, we're going to mark the 10th anniversary of our volunteer team. I hope that we can go down the road of serving more people across the nation, including people of 56 ethnic groups in China. I think love itself is a light bulb. It can bring warmth and light to all of us. I'm a grassroots community worker, but I will use my strength to light up the households of many. I may stop someday, but it doesn't matter because more people will take over my responsibilities. Thank you very much.
Next question.
请这位女士浅色装的，谢谢。
From CMG, my question goes to Deputy Ma Xiuying. You come from Jishishan Hospital, Gansu Province, and last year there was a severe earthquake and you were in the front line of the rescue. So what impressed you the most in this experience? Thank you for the question. Hello everyone, my name is Ma Xiuying. I come from Jishishan County of Gansu Province, and I am a grassroots medic representative. On December the 18th last year, a severe shock woke me up during the night, and I realized immediately that it was an earthquake, and I dragged my kid to the bathroom, and then I got a message from the hospital in emergency, so I put on my overcoats and ran to the hospital. It was very freezing outside, and also Jishishan has very high altitude. Even with my overcoat, I was frozen outside. And the Jishishan People's Hospital has about 600 medics who arrived in the hospital within half an hour's time, coming to the rescue. And there was severe damage back then, with several series of aftershocks. Me and my colleagues had no time left. We have to resettle those patients and the affected people within 2 hours' time. The blackout was not an issue, and among the people I came to help, there was a girl called Qiao Yanan. When she was transferred to me, her head was covered in blood, and her body was covered in mud. I took her quickly to the rescue, and I did my sutures on her. And during this time, she grabbed my hand, and I kept telling her stories while helping her. The kid was helpless. I could tell from her eyes in the beginning, but then she fell asleep with my hug. And I turned to the other people needing my help. After careful rescue, that girl recovered very quickly, and when she was discharged, she ran to me happily, saying that thank you. When I grow up, I want to be a doctor as well. At that moment, I was hit that the days and nights of hard work after the earthquake were worth it. And the girl's words about becoming a doctor when she grows up was a firm recognition of my work. I could still remember many incidents in those days. The Linda Highway witnessed a heavy flow of transportation with the rescue workers coming from everywhere in China. For example, the policemen and the firefighters. Even when it's still dark, at night, the road traffic was resumed. The central government dispatched helpers, the materials, arrived and the instant noodles were out of the pot, the tents were put up. Even in the disasters, we share our feelings for each other, and our motherland is always behind us. In the difficult times, we are running against the time. And we have the advantage of the Chinese speed. When one is in despair, people from elsewhere will come to help. That's the power of China. And within 15 hours' time, we completed the instant rescue work. And in the first 9 hours after the earthquake, people could have access to the hot meals. And then in 17 hours' time, telecommunications were resumed. In 19 hours' time, the grid was on, and 30 million tents were temporarily put up. And in 10 days, the settlements were introduced, and 101 schools affected in the affected areas could welcome students now. And as a witness of that earthquake, to live in this loving nation, I feel deeply proud and lucky. When we give our goodwills, we could accumulate them to support the affected people so that they could stand up. And finally, the springtime is coming in Jishishan County. Thank you.
谢谢两位代表，谢谢。现在请第二组代表。
Now let's bring the second batch of deputies.
两位代表分别是
They are
景德镇陶瓷
Director of Jingdezhen
研究员
Porcelain
于吉华
and
代表，
Arts Development Center,
大家好。
Mr. Yu Jianhua,
西藏龙子县斗
and
鱼洛巴民族乡乡长扎西江村代表，
Party Secretary
大家好。
of a township
谢谢。
of Xizang,
现在请大家开始提问。
Mr. Zha Xijiangcun. Now the floor is
请
open.
第一排淡色上装的女士，谢谢。
First question, please.
谢谢主持人。中国日报记者。
Thank you. I'm with
我的
China
问题想
Daily.
提给于吉华代表。
My question
瓷
is
器广
to
受欢迎，
Yu
但也
Jihua.
面临许多
Porcelain
竞争。
is
您
very
来自陶
popular.
瓷之都
There is
景德镇
also
请问在您看
a
来，
great amount
我
of
们应该
competition. You are
如何
from the
去保
capital
护
of
传承
porcelain,
陶瓷文化，
Jingdezhen.
同时又做到
In your
创新
view,
发展？
how should we
谢谢。
protect porcelain and engage in innovation-driven development for porcelain? I'm from Jingdezhen. I'm a craftsman. When I was 8 years old, I learned from my grandfather. I was mainly in laying flowers and polishing the surface of the porcelain. I also work out the patterns on the surface of porcelain, and you may know that there is this very famous porcelain called the color enamels in Jingdezhen. In the past, it was only used in royal palaces. The legend of Jingdezhen has it that out of 10 porcelain, there might be only 1 color enamels. After many years of efforts, we created a latest technology and technique which is able to recover and reclaim the glory and the glaze of the former color enamels. In so doing, we have brought the enamels from the royal palace to ordinary households. Talking about going global, we have to embrace the protection of intellectual property rights. In 2020, when I was serving as the NPC deputy, I shared my views with the other competent authorities regarding setting up a porcelain IPR protection center of Jingdezhen. And then the center of IPR protection was established the next year, providing legal framework to porcelain of Jingdezhen. As a traditional craftsman, I will definitely deliver more and better and more beautiful porcelain works to advocate the culture and tell the Chinese story well. Thank you. Next question, please.
请第一排这位深色上装的男士，谢谢。
From People's Daily, thank you. My question goes to Deputy Zha Xijiangcun. You're a grassroots cager, and could you please share with us about your stories as from the minority group? Hello everyone, my name is Zha Xijiangcun and I come from Luoba nationality, and I am now the village head, and it's sitting in the border area. So we are located with a distance. And in 2018, I came to the village from Lhasa, and it took me about 9 hours. But this time, traveling to Beijing for the 2 sessions, on the same way here, it took me only 5 hours to travel from the village. So the development of transportation enables the grassroots people to feel the convenience of traveling, and also it created many favorable conditions for our development in the border areas. And the 219 national highway just to trespass our doorsteps, and the townships and the villages around have become the tourist spots. Many villagers have opened their guest houses or restaurants in their houses. And a good news to be shared with you, in my village, the Luoba nationalities culture and history exhibition is open now. We have a specific exhibition hall for the village. And since we enjoy a long history, our costumes, Abdani, have been listed as a national intellectual heritage. For example, the costume I'm wearing right now is one of the costumes of our nationality. In the Chinese nation, among all the nationalities, we are just like a unique flower, and the solidarity between the nationalities would allow everyone to be integrated with the others. Previously, Luoba nationality lived on hunting, and now we believe that green is good. We must protect our beautiful homes. Now, in the wilderness, we could see very frequently those wild animals like the monkeys and the deers, which are very rare to be seen on a daily basis. But those wild animals would take a tour around our villages or go to the farms to have a taste of our wheat. So it's truly harmony between man and nature. And you can find such harmony in every corner of the village. And with more favorable policies to benefit the farmers implemented, the local villagers are getting wealthier. For example, in Douyi village, there will raise one household of 3 people who opened a shop. The little girl learned excavation, and with their bare hands, now they are living a better life. In 2023, the disposable income was about 30,000 RMB last year. Now we have very well-developed facilities like water supply and electricity supply and the telecommunications. And the previously remote village now could be connected with people nationwide. In Xizang, there is one proverb saying that the happiness lies in your hands, and you need to look up at the sun to live in harmony with nature. And of course, we have to rely on the leadership of the CPC Central Committee to build up the economy in the border area and to become the builders of the happy hometown ourselves. And in that way, we can open a new chapter for Xizang. And here, I sincerely welcome every one of you to take a tour in Xizang and experience the splendor of the environment here, especially the scenery in the highland. Thank you.
Now the third batch of deputies. They are Deputy Party Secretary and President of Yali Middle School, Mr. Wang Xu, President of Zhongshan University and Academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences, Mr. Gao Song. Now the floor is open.
请远端中间这位女士提问，谢谢。
First question, please.
谢谢主持人。法制日报全媒体记者提
With
问，
Legal
我们先把
Daily,
问题问给王旭代表。王代表您
My
好，
question is to
我们
Wang
知
Xu.
道您是来自教育行业，
We know you
作
are
为一个
from
老师
the
培养过很多
field of
孩子
education as a
那这么
teacher.
多年
You
以来，
have
有没有
trained
让
and
您印象特别
educated
深刻的学
a great
生？
number of
还有就是
kids.
您
Are
是一个
there
校长，想
any
必很多家长
impressive
会经常跟您
graduates?
咨询
You're
该
also
如何
the
缓
president
解
of the
教育
school.
焦虑的
You
问
must
题。
be
那您在
You must
长
have
期
been
的
reached
教育
out
生
by
涯
a
当
lot
中
of
如何理解
parents
和看待教育？
regarding how
谢谢。
to relieve the anxiety of parents. And what is your view on that? Thank you for your question. I come from Changsha of Hunan Province. I'm from the Yali Middle School. Over the past 20 years, I feel strongly that education is the industry for hope. Let me share with you some stories. In 2016, I met a 11-year-old boy. When he was a kid, he suffered from a traffic accident. And one day he was sitting on the wheelchair pushed by his mother. And he said, I want to become a student in your school. I saw him on a wheelchair because he was paralytic. I asked him, can you take care of yourself? And he said, yes, I can. Immediately after answering my question, he pushed himself up with his both arms, and then he used both of his hands to walk on the ground. I was so touched that I cried out tears. I had a lot of admiration for him, and we also trust that he can be successful. And during 6 years of middle school and high school, he was very hardworking, and then he became a college student learning robotic engineering. He said that he was the best to experiment some prosthesis. When kids encounter major setbacks in their life, we should never give up on them. Give them the best help, and that is to light up the hope in their mind. Over the years, Hunan Province has set up some schools for kids with special difficulties. The purpose is to bring hope to them. A couple of years ago, an alumnus went back to me, told me that he set up a major national laboratory of computing. Actually, when he was a middle school student, he was very enthusiastic in computer. He even won the gold medal of the international Olympic competition. He and his students, they jointly worked out a new generation of robots. Each and every child has their own interest and special talents. We as parents and teachers, we need to explore their talents, provide them with curriculums and platforms so that they can maximize their talents and tap the potential of their talents, because this will light up their hope for a future career. Prior to the 2 sessions, I was approached by several students, and they know I was about to go to Beijing, and they're running a club which conducted a survey regarding preschool education and the care support for the kids. I was very touched because they are high school students. They started to pay attention to social development and the life of the people and the needs of the country. And this, I believe, is what's needed from the youth of China. On the campus of Yali School, we have the motto of shoulder up the responsibilities of the future with your spirit. There are no totally identical leaves or persons on earth. Between the students, there are differences, yes, of course, but there is no gap in terms of ability and capability. We need to respect the kids, trust them, and believe that their talents today represent the hope for tomorrow. We as the parents and teachers, we need to be confident in the future, because this confidence will just be like sunshine, nurturing the growth of the next generation. Juveniles, they are at a critical period. They may have some anxiety, so that's why they need the most guidance and support. Schools connect the dreams of parents and the future of the nation. It is our responsibility to bring hope to different households, to this nation and to this country, and this is the original mission of education. Thank you.
请大家继续提问。
Next question.
请第一排这位男士，谢谢。
Thank you from Xinhua News Agency. And I would love to ask Deputy Gosong, higher learning education has always been the key focus of the society. How to improve the students' creativity and comprehensive development, since you come from Tsinghua University, so I would really love to get some answers from you. Thank you for your questions. I am from the delegation of Guangdong Province, and I've been in the sector of chemistry studies as well as the management of a university. Your questions remind me of my experience 30 years ago when I was a master degree holder doing the rare earth separation studies. And I tried to optimize the process on the computer and do some simulation in the universities. And then I went to the factories to realize those thoughts. But something unexpected happened, which confused me. When the rare earth liquid was a chaotic mixture, I was stricken. And we refer to some previous literature with no existing answers. So we have to do rounds of experiments, and after trials and errors, finally, we find a solution, which is about applying a demulsifier. So I kept making breakthroughs by myself in order to break new grounds. For example, I found for the first time the single ion magnetic, and I developed the synthesis of the ferromagnetic and the ferroelectric. And now we are exploring how to apply those molecules in quantum information and molecular-based treatment therapies. In my personal learnings, my studies, and the teaching experience, I realized that in our daily lives, the majority of the problems we encountered were uncertain and complex. For one single discipline or major, it's very difficult to resolve those problems. But education right now is about imparting the previous knowledge to the students, expecting the kids to solve the problems of the future. And in face of uncertainties in the future, we must cultivate the students with some universal capabilities. For example, the ability of thinking, execution, and the creativeness. And that is in alignment with the model of Tsinghua University. So how to cultivate creativity for the students? One of the major channels to me is inviting the students to be more involved in the higher level of studies and in basic research and the cultivation of talents in this area. We are one of the mainstay, and cultivating talents is the fundamental support of the national strategies. And universities could be a bridge between the strategies. Serving as the NPC deputy, I have been giving proposals in recent years about how to play the role of the higher learning institutions to become the mainstay of talent cultivation, especially those in basic research. Last year, I proposed to offer the steady support of basic research on the campuses, and this year I mentioned about pivoting those competition-based budget towards optimized utilization so as to better incentivize the researchers and the certain entities. In that way, we could encourage them to produce more cutting-edge technologies. And that is also conducive to the cultivation of creative talents and to have independence of our scientific research. That will be an important part of our productive forces. And this year marks the 100th anniversary of Sun Yat-sen University. In the past 1 century, our university has been committed to the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation by cultivating 500,000 graduates in total. Generations of alumni from our university are giving contribution to the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation. As you know, Sun Yat-sen University is located in the Greater Bay Area, in Guangzhou, Zhuhai, and Shenzhen, the 3 core cities of the Greater Bay Area. We have our presence. And this year, in Hong Kong, we will try to establish a higher learning research institute to open wider to the external partners. And looking forward, we will be actively integrated in the strategy of the Greater Bay Area, contributing to establishing a technological center and a highland of talents, thus contributing to the national rejuvenation and prosperity. Thank you. Dear media friends, after the closing ceremony, this afternoon there will be the 3rd Ministers' Corridor inviting the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, the General Administration of Sport, General Administration of Customs, China National Intellectual Property Administration, and National Financial Regulatory Administration. Thank you.
That was the Deputies Corridor event in which NPC deputies meet media directly and answer questions of public concern. So, we can see that they're actually really common people in their daily lives. They're doing really well in their professional jobs, and they're actually people you can meet in your daily lives. For example, a worker from the state grid, grassroots medic, a porcelain maker, right? A township head, a high school president, and a university president. You can actually meet them, and you may talk to them in your daily life.
They really shared their thoughts, their professional thoughts about their everyday work, their suggestions to the government, and then also, you know, the stories that they came across during their work, stories of mission, stories of hope, and stories of turning simple dreams into reality. It's pretty touching.
Exactly, and their work may not seem so grand, but you can sense their passion and dedication to their daily in and out routine, right?
Exactly.
So for more insight, let's talk to our studio guest. How about we start with higher education in China? Mr. Askelund, earlier you mentioned that China need at least 30 million skilled workers in the future. But now we're also hearing the president of a very prestigious university in China talking about nurturing higher-end talents to meet the nation's high-quality demand. So it looks like efforts on both ends, right?
I think you're absolutely right, and China will, of course, continuously need both. And I also took note of the gentleman from CGTN talking about the importance of preserving traditional forms of art and manufacturing.
And through IPR.
And through IPR, that angle also. And very much, as you did, I also took note of the grassroots focus, because at the end of the day, where you feel the difference is at the grassroots level. I think it's important that you emphasize both, and you need to get the balance right again, because in particular, perhaps in China, as in many other countries where youth is becoming a finite resource, you need to make sure that when you educate people, the jobs are there at the other end, and that people are educated for the right things. And also, again, that you are able to meet the needs of society as well of the young people. And there I think it was also heartening to hear the example about the discussion about equal access to education. Even though you have special needs, it's important that everyone is having a fair chance at developing themselves and giving a chance to contribute. So I think that was positives of this. Also, the focus on elderly care, I took note of, and healthcare. I think these are all themes that resonates with the wider public. It certainly does with me.
Well, you mentioned your concern about hukou reform just now, and Mr. Zhu, your focus were on the economy, or on employment, and I hope some of the deputies' answers pretty much addressed your concerns as well.
Yes, I think I was very impressed by. I think one is, I think Jens mentioned, I think the emphasis on the grassroots. I think you just hear so much from the very lower level of the society, and then you can sense the energy and also the strength of the social fabrics and the community. So I think that's very encouraging and very promising to have. And the second thing that I have taken quite a lot of the notes is the inclusiveness. I think, be it schools, be it hospitals, be it the access to the state grid, the power supply. I think people are really working hard to provide as much public services to as many people. I think this is really important. As we know, the availability of public services is very important for not just the assurance and the confidence of the society, but also people can go out and do their things without having to worry about some of the basics of life. So I think that is very encouraging. And another thing I was very much impressed by is the diversity. So I think you can see, coming from Zhejiang, going into Jiangxi and then Tibet. So I think it's really, China is a huge nation, which means that, well, there's really not one size fits all definition of the country. So yes, the eastern coastal area is more developed and more sort of international, but then you have a lot of other areas which are aspiring to or already doing this to catching up with the east side of the nation. So I think that is basically a gradual ascent of the economy at different levels in different areas, which I think is very encouraging.
Diverse representation from across the country, from the well-developed coastal regions and then also to the remote, for example, Xizang Autonomous Region, and people doing different work. And certainly that really, underlines not only the strength of the nation, the strength of the community, but also the health of the community. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Now let's check in the latest with our reporter, Dong Xue. She's standing by for us at the Great Hall of the People, and she's been following the event there very closely. Dong Xue.
Well, Mama, as the Deputies Corridor wraps up, we're here expecting the closing session of the 14th National People's Congress. While Chinese Premier Li Qiang is expected to adopt the government report during the closing session, widely considered one of the highlights. Well, the report, of course, contains the key policy priorities and objectives for the coming year, outlining, strategies to overcome domestic challenges and capitalize opportunities for growth and development, as well as underscores the government's commitment to achieve stable economic growth and promote innovation, advanced economic, social welfare as well. Well, throughout this year's session, over 7,000 suggestions and nearly 300 proposals have been received as delegates from across China have taken part, providing their insights, suggestions, and feedbacks on the wide range of issues which will be affecting their constituencies. Well, during the closing session, key legislative measures will also be ratified. Well, these aim to strengthen China's legal framework and governance structures and include legislation on national security, public health, health, environmental protection, as well as social welfare, as I mentioned earlier. Well, this year's two sessions have been closely watched at home and abroad. Obviously, it marks a crucial moment for China as the country navigates unprecedented global challenges, from economic uncertainties to geopolitical tensions. Well, as the curtains closes on the 14th National People's Congress, China also stands at a very critical moment in its journey to transition to a new model for social economic development. Well, the decisions taken during this historic occasion will no doubt play a huge role in the future, which will shape of China's modernization path. Mang.
Well, thank you so much, Dong Xue, for bringing us that.
Now, for more insight, let's go back to our studio guests. So, the upcoming closed meeting of this year's NPC session is expected to make a resolution on the draft government work report. And in that draft, a 5% GDP growth target was proposed. Mr. Zhu, this is on top of your concern lists. So you mentioned speed, but what about quality? We know China is already the world's second largest economy. So a 5% GDP growth would be much larger than the old days, right?
Yes, I think there are two very different ways of looking at this. On one hand is exactly, I think starting around 2016, China has been embarked on this journey to transition from the high-speed growth to the high-quality growth, which is really important. I think in my interpretation, I've been saying this quite a few times. I think it entails, I think, more sustainable financially, more friendly environmentally, and more inclusive socially, and also more scientifically driven. So I think those are very good things, and that's, I think, the foundation for China to go in the next decade, if not decades, on the sustainable and high-quality growth. But that being said, especially in the aftermath of the COVID, I think we have to also keep in mind, I think speed is still important. So I think that is why we're setting around 5% of growth. It's not just, whatever it is still a target. I think for that growth, we can generate the necessary job opportunities, which will be very helpful to the young generation. We can also provide enough resources so that the economy can just have additional resources to pour into for investment, for R&D, and also for some of the next generation bigger things. So I think that is also very important. So for that, I think the work report is quite a balance in both acknowledging the challenges for the short-term growth targets, but also acknowledging the need for longer-term structural reform so that we can have successfully achieve the goal of high-quality growth transformation.
So your second biggest concern is about employment, right? And I noticed that in the draft government work report, an employment target to create at least 12 million urban jobs.
Right.
Yes.
And I also noticed that it's expected this year there will be 11 million, more than 11 million undergraduates entering the job market.
Yes.
How big is the challenge?
Well, I think the challenge is still there. We have to face it. One is we have an unusually large number of fresh college graduates coming out of the college. So going into the labor market, that is a shock, or that is an additional shock to the labor market to start out with. And two is that we also have to be mindful that after COVID, I think there's not just the total number of employment or opportunities changing. It is also the younger generation's preference. I think people are no longer as much interested in working in the assembly line type of job, which is not scarce. I think they're more interested in doing something that is more flexible, that fits more into their personal agenda. But I think that is something which I think the job market will have to adapt to the younger generation's need. On top of that, I think we also have to be mindful that creating jobs is not just about growing the economy. It's also about how to have the economy touch on a wider range of the stakeholders or the society. So in that, I think both for vocational trainings and also for, starting from college, I'm a professor myself, how to better harness the education so that it can prepare the young college graduates into the job market, which I think is also very important. So both the demand side in creating jobs and also the supply side in better harnessing the students, prepare them for the job market.
I'd like to follow up on this, Professor Zhu. You mentioned younger people, especially fresh college graduates, are now having different preferences when they find jobs. So is it more realistic for them to perhaps adjust their expectation of their jobs?
I think sooner or later we all have to adjust our expectations. I think this is one big change I think the whole society would have to deal with in a gradually slowing down economy. I think this is the reality. So I think it is important, one, one have to change. Okay, my expectation cannot be as high as, let's say, pre-COVID. Things have changed. The whole world has changed as a result of that. The second is, I think it's not just about the changing in the younger population's mind. It's also about how the society can work together in helping create opportunities which will be better fit to the younger generation's needs. So I think, again, it takes two to tango, and we need all work together to help the younger generation, and helping the younger generation is helping the whole society and the national economic growth.
And Mr. Escalon, what are your thoughts on the employment prospects for the young people entering the workforce?
I think it is ironic exactly that we have certain areas, typically university graduates, where perhaps right now there is an overproduction of graduates, when there are other sectors that are
overqualified.
Overqualified. Where there are other sectors. Maybe we should not talk about overqualified, because I think what needs to happen is, in particular with skilled workers, that we begin to talk it up, and that we see that as fulfilling, an essential role in society also. I think one of the issues we have right now, making it difficult to attract people, is that there's not the same kind of prestige surrounding it. We need to get salaries up in manufacturing. We need to create more prestige. It's a mindset change, I think, that is required to make that happen, and hopefully it will come. I hope it will. And that's, of course, where we need the market to step in, because when there is a scarcity of skilled labors, typically the wages will also go up, and then hopefully over time that also becomes more attractive.
Yeah, I would like to follow up and say, in Chinese traditional culture, we say, 万般皆下品，唯有读书高. I mean, everything is not as good as reading books. But then we have to know that we're no longer in that society anymore. So I think we should gradually cultivate the social value towards, the more skilled workers should be highly respected and highly appreciated in the society.
Yeah. Sure. I just want to follow up what you said about the around 5% growth, because I think it's a quite ambitious target. But I think to us, actually, in the business, it's not so important that you have a high GDP number. What is more important is the composition of the GDP, and where we hope to see growth in particular is within domestic demand, within consumption. Because if you have growth in consumption, then you will also see the need for jobs arising, and that will take care of a lot of the issues we see with employment right now, and also take care of the overcapacity. And again, we saw at Lianghui, at the NPC also, that domestic demand was mentioned as a concern, and what we are hoping now is, of course, to see after the NPC that there will be concrete initiatives that will help to boost domestic demand and consumption.
Yeah. I share with you the fact that we have to take into consideration the structural health of the economy, whether it's sustainable, whether it could keep up with the changes of reality. For example, the revolutionary changes brought about by AI. Yes. We're going to talk about that in just a moment.
Good.
Yeah. Well, economic issues have been a priority for national political advisors in performing their political consultation duties. Chinese President Xi Jinping has called on political advisors to create new drivers for developing new quality productive forces. He made the remarks during a discussion with the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese Kuomintang, as well as representatives from the science and technology and environment and resources sectors.
Developing new quality productive forces does not mean ignoring or abandoning traditional industries. We must prevent rushing into it or creating a bubble. We can't stick to just one model. We must coordinate technological innovation and industrial innovation, strengthen the application of scientific and technological outcomes, promote the transformation and upgrading of traditional industries, develop strategic emerging industries, make the blueprint for and construct the industries of the future, and accelerate the development of a modern industrial system.
Now, in this following special joint report by CGTN and TV Bandeirantes in Brazil, our reporters Huang Fei and Igor Kalian bring you the latest on China's economic strategies. Take a look.
To understand how China thinks, you need to be in the room with its top decision makers, and that's exactly what we're doing here. I'm Huang Fei, reporting for China's state broadcaster CGTN.
And I'm Igor Kalian from TV Bandeirantes in Brazil. It's exciting to join thousands of Chinese lawmakers and political advisors in the capital and witness the latest policy discussions shaping the world's second largest economy and our biggest trading partner.
And our journey begins at the National People's Congress opening ceremony, where Premier Li Qiang delivers his first government work report. China has set an economic growth target of around 5%. Technology is key to meeting that goal, with a 10% increase in government spending on research and development this year. Artificial intelligence is one area of focus.
China will implement an AI plus strategy, digitize manufacturing, develop, share, and utilize data to empower the economy and enrich people's lives.
To find out what that means, we visited a tech company in Beijing. These cutting-edge devices capture the way you look, move, and how you show your emotions to create a digital avatar. It's already been used in corporate exhibitions and interactive museums.
The Beijing Municipal Science Committee gave us 4 million yuan in funding, and the Chaoyang district provided very nice and spacious offices, rent-free for 3 years. They also helped us find clients and opportunities to promote ourselves.
Wang believes generative AI has big potential. It not only releases humans from repetitive labor, it can also provide entertainment and knowledge. Igor, we have a digital avatar here, and her name is Xiaoyu, and you can ask her any question you'd like. What question would you like to ask her, and make it tough?
All right, I'll ask an economic question. How can we solve deflation?
如果经济出现通缩，有什么办法可以解决？
The solutions include monetary and fiscal policy and structural reform. The central bank can cut interest rates and implement quantitative easing. Industrial upgrading will help improve productivity. Measures like issuing consumption vouchers and organizing discounted promotions can also effectively boost spending.
A solid answer. But to get the most accurate ideas about where China's economy is really headed, the National People's Congress deputies held a press conference. Igor, do you have any burning questions for these officials?
Yes, the big question is how China will grow trade and attract more investments. This is very important for us in Brazil. We are talking about major trading partners, not only for Brazil, but for South America as a whole. After all, these are countries that import and export Chinese products.
Amid a slow global economy in 2024, we will boost foreign trade with these measures. First, we will expand intermediate goods trade, working with global partners to build an inclusive, resilient, and sustainable industry chain. Secondly, we will promote cross-border e-commerce exports through customs, taxation, and foreign exchange incentives. Third, we will explore new multilateral digital transactions in numerous pilot zones, including the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area.
Well, when it comes to China's trade with the world, the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau, Greater Bay Area in China is actually playing a leading role.
I understand that the area itself is a rapidly growing market of 86 million people, and Macau is in fact very important for this goods and services exchange between China and Portuguese-speaking countries.
On March 1st, the island of Hengqin in South China launched a new customs operation that allows goods from neighboring Macau to be moved to the island, mostly tax-free.
This is a new and quite daring policy. It never happened to our country before. It gives energy to Macau. It's a new piece of area which we could diversify ourselves, which Macau badly needs. I believe that with this new GBA arrangement, with more and intense connections with neighboring cities in the GBA radiating into the mainland, I believe that Macau can play an even more intensive role in consolidating our relationships and exchanges with the Portuguese countries.
The two sessions has outlined China's path forward. Modernizing industries and fostering a tech-driven economy are the top priorities. Many grassroots proposals will now influence legislative change. Igor, what are your final thoughts on this week?
Clearly, there is a sense of confidence and resilience, and I would even say frankness from China's leadership. Many see these events as rehearsed and choreographed, but I would use the words organized and determined. After all, to steer a big country like China, you need a clear plan of action, and everyone rowing in the same direction.
And that concludes our coverage for the 2024 two sessions. Goodbye for now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see some pieces like this done by journalists from not only CGTN, but also with cooperation with other media outlets across the world.
That's right. What a collaboration. It's good to see a Brazilian reporter working with us and walking through all these big topics in such specific terms. It's quite eye-opening. So.
Yeah, speaking different languages, I mean, language is no longer the barrier. We talked about AI. Yeah. You could do the translation in just a snap of fingers. So let's go back to the topic, economic growth. China's economy picked up on the whole, gentlemen, last year. But then some of the traditional areas of growth are experiencing bottleneck problems, difficulties or headwinds, we should say. How do you look at the new drivers of growth? Mr. Eskeland.
Clearly there is a potential, but I think, again, what would surprise me a little bit is if regulators and authorities had not been seeing this earlier, because these are not entirely new areas. I think there's a great potential, but I think you also need to look at other factors. For example, as we talked about consumption and domestic demand, because ultimately that will be what will fund these in the longer term. You can allocate resources towards it now, but if you don't work on the underlying demand, then you will not have this sustained long-term demand. But again, we think it's right. I mean, the Chinese economy is transitioning, and that's one of the reasons that we also like to be here as foreign companies. My predecessor as president of the chamber said that we regard China as a fitness center for foreign companies, and that is exactly because we are being challenged on bringing our best technologies. There's very good competition here, so we really need to be on our toes, and that's a good thing. What is, of course, is essential is that when you go in and you have these pro-development policies, that it's policies that sort of support the development of new technologies, but do not create distortions in the market. Then I think it's effective if you can engineer it in such a way.
And one policy direction is to further open up the market, to provide more favorable conditions to invite more foreign investment to the country. What are some of the items that topping your concern list?
First of all, we very much welcome this focus, and we saw a few months ago the Ministry of Commerce actually issuing a letter that foreign companies should be given national treatment. That is very, very positive. That is something that we have been talking about for a long time. I think another thing is, because the whole world now is talking about security, is how do you get the balance right between security concerns and open markets? We have seen, for example, the proposed new data security laws, which will be problematic for many companies. So it's important we have a discussion about how can you protect national security while at the same time also allowing companies to develop to their full potential. So get that balance right, I think, would be very, very important for both foreign and domestic companies.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Eskeland, I know you work in global shipping, right?
Yes.
So I believe you ought to notice that soundbite from China's Commerce Minister regarding China's foreign trade.
Yeah.
So have you noticed this structural change of China's total foreign trade actually in Southeast Asian countries are catching up? So what do you make of this trend? What does this tell about the status of global economy?
Actually, I'm on the firm opinion that even though China reached the highest proportion ever of its share of global export in 2022, I don't think it's going to drop for the talk about nearshoring and friendshoring and decoupling and all that. I think with the focus now on continuing to grow, maintain competitiveness in Chinese manufacturing, I think that China is actually going to probably maintain its very high share of global export. What we might see is that some of the trade patterns may change, so that you will see higher exports to some regions rather than others. But China's status as the leading exporting nation, I don't see that changing at all. What I hope to see a little bit of is that we also see progress on the import side, and that's where, again, I think when you look at the current account right now, the surplus in the Chinese current account is almost about 4% to GDP, which is very, very high. So creating a little bit of balance there, I think it will take a lot of the tension away that we see right now between main trading partners and China.
Okay, since you mentioned this, China and Europe is also linked by land, right? The Eurasian land bridge.
Yes.
So how can the two sides make most out of this land link?
Yeah. First of all, it has been hampered somewhat because of the war in Ukraine, and that has put a lot of European companies off not using the land link. It's a pity because it was a good product. But again, we should keep the proportions in mind. One train perhaps can have 100 containers. The big container ships can 24,000 containers. So you do the math. It takes a lot of trains to just take the cargo of one. But again, clearly, there was a need for it, there was a niche, so we actually believe that there could be a viable commercial product using the lane link. But Europe-China trade is not going to disappear. It's very large, it's stable. We would like to see a little bit more balance, but other than that, I'm confident that it also has a bright future ahead of it.
And Professor Zhu, what sectors do you identify as the new drivers for economic growth?
Well, I think science and technology is definitely the main driving force. I think we're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about new telecommunication areas, we're talking about renewable energy, we're talking about healthcare, health science, and we're talking about space, exactly, aerospace. I think there are two things which are really, really important for China's economy. One is, I think China has been climbing the value ladder, as Jens pointed out, over the past decades. So China is no longer just a simple manufacturing or assembly line. China has the ability of mini innovation in my own language, and also the ability to better management. I think China is no longer just following the management know-hows from the West. China is now leading. I mean, just using the example of Temu or ByteDance or Shein, I think it's really setting a new way of doing business, not just for China, but for the entire world. So I think that is something we have to keep in mind. And then another key information, which I think Jens alluded to, was I think technology and science developments are a little bit polarized or politicized in the recent past. I think people are really becoming very restrictive with, well, this is mine, this is yours. We can no longer collaborate, which is not in the interest of science or technology. So in that regard, I think just going back to your question for Jens about how China can be more open and China can be more trusted by the international community, which I think is very important. And this happens in a very I think a very unique point of time. 2023, I think, marked two very important moments. One is the size of the BRICS economy surpassed that of the G7 countries. So in a way, you can say this is emerging economy gradually becoming greater than the developed economy, so to speak. The second is China's trade to the Belt and Road countries for the first time crossed that of China's export to developed economies again, reflecting the dependence or the contribution of China's economy to the world differently from it used to. So I think we're talking about a very fastly changing world, and in this, how can China better adapt to the new environment and how to push its own advantage to the far end? I think it is really the basis for how China could lead, not just follow, the science and technology development in a new era.
I'm interested in your vocabulary, mini innovation. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Right, okay, I actually have learned this from one of our clients from Europe in the business of costume and fragrance. And he was saying, well, they invited in a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs on the ground because they believe it is Chinese entrepreneurs who knows Chinese customers better and who can really produce a new fragrance within a matter of months, not a matter of years. And this, again, going back to your predecessors at the chamber, I think it's really a way of not just about working hard, but working smart. I think China's management know-how and China's ability to sort of how to, I mean, it's not a big breakthrough in basic science research, but a breakthrough in how to better listen to your customers, how to better serve your customers. I think those are the things which I think China is really now excelling, and I think that is one area which China is doing. I think, for example, using the example of Belt and Road Initiative, I think China is investing in a lot of the Belt Road Initiative countries, but at the same time, it's not just about China's capital, it's about Chinese know-hows, Chinese technology. So I think that is not just in the interest of China or Chinese people, it is in the interest of a far broader range of the common community, the so-called global village.
So policy-wise, Mr. Zhu, still focusing on Shanghai, recently we noticed that the central leadership has just approved a plan for the further opening up of the Pudong area in Shanghai, and many ambitious steps have been taken there. So do you think this will be the test ground for China's next stage opening up to the world?
Yes, I think Shanghai, and in particular the Pudong New District, has been the teststone for China's reform and opening up over the past 2 or 3 decades by now. I think a couple of things that I have been watching very closely for, and I have been doing this exercise over the past decade or so, ever start with the Shanghai FTZ, free trade zone. I think one thing is the loosening of the immigration and the visa requirement. I think there was a mentioning about, well, if you go to Pudong area, stay in that area, you don't require a visa, I think, for the 36 or 72 hours, which I think is very helpful for, Shanghai will become an even bigger hub for China to meet the rest of the world. So I think that is very helpful. And the second is, I think, again, we have to be realistic about, I think, the tax treatment. So in a way, I think how Hengqin and how Shenzhen has been developing is, I think they're trying to equilibrate the tax treatment in mainland China and in Hong Kong and in Macau. So I think that is one big attraction to foreign business and foreign nationals. So in a way, how can China or how can Pudong better utilize this special zone treatment and push in those areas? I think will be very meaningful to foreign companies and foreign nationals.
Well, gentlemen, we'll be getting back to you on this very soon. You're watching CGTN's special coverage on China's annual political season, the 2 sessions. China's lawmakers are wrapping up their annual gathering at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing on Monday.
Yeah, and in just a few moments, the chairman of the NPC Standing Committee, Zhao Leji, will deliver a speech. Much more ahead in our special program. Stay with us for the full coverage of this event.
Now, China has set expansion of a high standard opening up as one of its vital tasks for the year 2024. As he delivered this year's government work report to the national legislature, Chinese Premier Li Qiang outlined measures in the pipelines for attracting more foreign investment to China.
We will intensify efforts to attract foreign investment. All market access restrictions on foreign investment in manufacturing will be abolished, and market access restrictions in services sectors such as telecommunications and healthcare will be reduced.
China will also ramp up efforts to increase both the volume and quality of foreign trade. It plans to boost the imports of high-quality goods and make it easier for foreigners to work, study and travel in China. Also, it will strive to achieve a more high-quality Belt and Road cooperation on both major as well as small and beautiful projects. China will deepen multilateral, bilateral and regional economic cooperation and reach more free trade agreements and investment deals with more countries and regions.
Well, Wang Yi says China will extend visa exemption to 6 European countries on a pilot basis as it hopes to facilitate more travel to China. Wang Yi is the foreign minister of China.
Economic diplomacy is an important part of our external work. We will continue to take steps to facilitate visits in China, including more convenient payments. I wish to share with you that starting from March the 14th, China will further extend, on a pilot basis, visa exemption to 6 countries, including Switzerland, Ireland, Hungary, Austria, Belgium, and Luxembourg. We hope more countries will offer Chinese citizens visa facilitation and work with us to build fast-track networks for cross-border travels and encourage speedy resumption of international passenger flights. This will make it more convenient for Chinese citizens to travel abroad and make foreign friends feel at home in China.
So far, China has signed mutual visa exemption agreements with over 150 countries. Of these, 23 nations have forged comprehensive visa-free agreements with China. In December last year, China granted unilateral visa-free entry for citizens of 6 countries, including France, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy, and Malaysia. Peter Oliver has the story from Berlin.
The ITB Berlin is the world's largest trade fair for the travel and tourism industry, held every year in the German capital. Among those pitching themselves as the dream destination for holidaymakers is China.
There are many reasons to come to China, but the most important one, I think, is because of its history in modern development. Everyone knows that China is a country with a long history, and Beijing is the city that best represents China's ancient culture. Beijing as a city has a history of thousands of years, and as a capital it has a history of more than 860 years. In December, citizens of France, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Italy and Malaysia were given visa-free entry to China for 15 days for tourism and business. Ireland and Switzerland were added to the list in January. It's been a popular move.
Since the country announced this visa-free policy, we can see that more and more foreign guests, especially European guests, are becoming more and more interested in coming to China. I believe that we can see more people coming now, and in the future, there will definitely be more European guests coming to China.
From the sprawling, vibrant city life of Shanghai to an army of terracotta soldiers on duty for over 2,000 years, to the imperial splendor of the Forbidden City, in the sun or even the very cold. Those specializing in bringing Europeans to China say the best way to understand the country is to visit.
I think it's not just about seeing with your eyes, because when you come to China, you have to see more traditional attractions, and then you have to enjoy Chinese food, and then feel the Chinese culture.
And for those of us who can't get a trip to China anytime soon, there is the next best thing. Peter Oliver, CGTN, Berlin.
This just came in. The National People's Congress has adopted a resolution to approve this year's government work report, which was delivered by Premier Li Qiang last Tuesday. Lawmakers are also voting on other state affairs as they conclude their annual gathering, and CGTN will keep you updated. Also, the National People's Congress has just voted to adopt the revised organic law of the State Council. Officials say the revision will help improve governance. Now, for more insight, let's go back to our studio guest. So it's official now, approved by China's highest power organ, the government work report. So it's a big task ahead, and 5% GDP growth and also new quality productive forces will be the main driver for the economic grand design this year. So still going back to the role of SciTech in realizing new quality productive forces. Mr. Zhu, what about the transformation of all the innovations into actual productive forces, or let's make it easier, put them into businesses? What about the current mechanisms and its challenges?
Yeah, I think that is a big question. That could be $1 trillion question. And I think I come from educational background. So in universities, for example, a lot of people are doing a lot of fundamental research, but then they don't really have the know-how or the acumen or the knowledge about how to turn them into commercial opportunities. I think we have already been working very hard in the past decades, trying to, both from the university side and from the business side, to try to bridge that gap, so to speak. So for the university side, I think there are more and more universities which are setting up, I think, like incubators or state university-owned companies which are trying to facilitate the transformation from technology into business. And on the other hand, I think the existence of venture capitalism and private equity funds, and they're also actively seeking opportunities from next generation technology. But for that, I think we need two things to work out better than it is currently situated. I think one is we need a better business environment in the way about, because for all those very fundamental science research, it takes a long time and there's a great deal of uncertainty. So how can we better bridge capital with innovation? I think that is, we need the right mechanism. I think there has been some recent incident about, uncertainties about how for example, the Star Board is going to help various type of early stage companies to go list their shares. But then, if there's no tradings in those shares, then of course it wouldn't be doing the service of those startup companies. So I think that is one thing we have to work hard on. The second is, I think, a more stable expectation about the regulations. I think we have seen that the crackdown on educational service companies, on some areas of pharmaceutical companies, on some gaming industries. I think those are creating some kind of confusion and anxiety about the entrepreneurs. So even if I do have the science and technology, even if I could turn that into products, how would I know that this whole company will not be cracked down or taken away overnight? So I think that stability of the institutional protection and safety, I think that is also very important in transforming from a pure science and technology research to a more business setup.
Well, gentlemen, let's get the latest from the ongoing closing meeting of this year's NPC session. Lawmakers have just approved a report on the implementation of the 2023 Plan for National Economic and Social Development, as well as a draft of plan for this year. So, gentlemen, we're talking about the role of innovation. Has Europe walked down this road? Any experience China can learn from?
I think actually there's a lot that Europe can learn from China now, and maybe I agree with almost all that you said, but there was maybe one aspect where I think actually maybe you're not being entirely fair to China, and that's China's ability to turn research into products, where I think in particular within renewable energy, within EV, within battery technology and other high-tech areas, we see that the lead time from sort of scientific research and turning it into something, a commercial product, is very, very short. And I think that has been one of the challenges perhaps from Europe, that the product cycles in China are just so short. And that's what I mean about China as a fitness center. You need to run really, really fast in order to make sure that you remain competitive. So I think that's actually a strength. I think now going into a period where we have to expect lower growth relative to the past, the issue will be that how do you invest in a way where you avoid waste. It will all be about efficiency going forward, that you allocate resources where it matters the most and where you get most bang for the buck. And that's where I think maybe going forward that China needs to work a little bit on getting the recipe exactly right. And then I agree with you on the regulatory landscape. The thing that made China such a fantastic proposition from a foreign investor perspective is that you had this immense predictability. You know, you knew you got what you signed up for, right? Yeah. But now you have these changes to many sectors, and people begin to ask, yes, if I'm going to commit for the next 20 years, how certain can I be that the rules will be the same? And that I think would be important, that we have this line of sight in the future before we go in and make a very large investment.
Policy consistency.
Indeed,
exactly.
And again, let's get the latest from the ongoing closing meeting of this year's NPC session. Lawmakers have just approved the report on the execution of the central and local budget for 2023, as well as the budgets for this year. So, continue our discussion. Mr. Askelund, we're talking about the role of innovation. How about we look at it from the other side, from the demand side? Yes. And there have been a new term called 3 News in China's exports, namely NEVs, new energy vehicles, solar panels and solar batteries and lithium batteries. How much of this new phenomenon is actually driven by demand? Because we know for electric cars, in the winters of northern China, battery is certainly a big challenge, and also so that somehow prompted the deeper research of the energy intensity of batteries, right?
And you mentioned that in northern China it has been an issue, but I think it's interesting to see it's actually in northern Europe where you also have freezing winters, that you have seen the highest pickup of electric
you share
cars.
The pain.
Yeah. Well, I actually think it works pretty well, and I'm driving an electric car myself. But I think what is important here again is that we are able to work in tandem, Europe and China, so that one or the other part is not seen as a threat, but that you are actually complementing each other. And I think there is maybe a perception in Europe right now that because it's happening so fast, that this is something that can threaten the industrial base on Europe. And I think China ought to listen to these concerns, because I think the worst thing that can happen is that we have more tensions building up. So I think the two sides really need to sit down and listen and see if they can find an off-ramp before this develops into something that we don't want to see. Again, I would like to emphasize we see very significant future potential in joint development. So let's focus on that and listen to each other.
And really, when it comes to technology, new is just a relative term. You never know what's on the horizon next. For example, when we are talking about EV, the next generation could be hydrogen cars. Who knows when that will be in market? So how do you look at the advantages or the challenges being brought about by technologies and science?
First of all, I think you may know better, Professor, but I think it was actually excellent advice from the AI avatar that one thing you could do to boost consumption was to look at consumption vouchers, for example. So maybe try to see if we can utilize AI also to develop, policies, and then of course see whether it makes sense afterward. But I thought that was a good suggestion. Yes, I mean we see that technologies can be disruptive, but I think basically. In the vast majority of cases, it's a force for good. But when you have disruption, it creates anxiety, it creates insecurity, and that's where I think it's more important than ever that we sit down and we listen to each other before things go wrong. And I think now we have seen it in particular with EVs and battery technology and these kind of things. I think there are legitimate concerns on both sides. Let's find the space and sit down instead of just throwing accusations against each other.
Well, Mr. Zhu, we'll be talking to you on this very soon. Now let's get the latest. China's now the latest from the NPC closing meeting. Lawmakers have just adopted a resolution on the work report of the NPC Standing Committee, and of course we'll keep you updated on this. So, Mr. Zhu, what's your take on our earlier discussion, the challenges and maybe opportunities sometimes posed by
I think we have this word in Chinese, right? In Beijing, in our word, whenever there is crisis, there is opportunity. So I think it's always two things, two sides of the same coins. But I think I totally agree with what Yan said about I think how to take advantage of the technological development to better regulate technology. I think this is one thing. We're always saying, well, regulators are not having as much resources as the entrepreneurs, so the regulation is always behind. But now that we all have access to, let's say, AI, and AI, if it's open source, then it's available to everyone. So how can we take advantage of this and try to make this big leap in technological development, not as disruptive as before. So I think this is one thing we should really think hard about. And another thing is, I think, how to include a wider range of stakeholders. So with AI or with robotics, of course, on one hand, we can see the efficiency or the new quality productive force is getting stronger. But on the other hand, we'll be talking about the job might be lost, and there will be increasing insecurity from the labor force's mind. So how can we sort of try to have a more accommodative, more inclusive approach to this? Just try to, just like what Yan says, if it's between Europe and China, then try to have both sides sit at the same table, try to find a common grounds. But even within one country, how to try to have all the stakeholders sit on the same table or being fairly represented when we're moving along with the new changes in science and technology.
And I believe most of the people would like to see a rosy picture of AI's future, but technology itself, its current legal, ethical, and practical challenges are real, and that's a global consensus. If you recall last year's AI governance summit in London, right? Yeah. And how's China doing in this particular regard? Since actually we're right now in the two sessions. That's one session is actually China's top legislature.
Yes, I think I've actually read some news reporting about, I think some of the deputies actually propose that we should move faster or move more cohesively towards that direction. I think China is actually one of the first few countries in the whole world proposed guidelines on AI last year. So I think this is already putting China on the front foot in setting regulation standard for AI. On the other hand is, I think we have probably a better coordination between the private business and the state government. So in a way, the SOEs, the government officials, and the entrepreneurs, they can all talk this out. So I think that this is also probably more coherent than many other countries. Last but certainly not least, I think it's quite important that we have to keep in mind, well, technology itself is largely neutral. It is how human beings take advantage of technology that it really makes a difference. So in a way, I think it's not just about the technology per se, it's about, well, how can we better regulate or harness people's behavior or attitude towards AI. I think that's what's going to make all the difference.
Indeed, time now to get the latest. This is the latest from the NPC closing meeting. Deputies have passed a resolution on the work report of a Supreme People's Court, and of course we'll keep you updated.
And continuing our discussion just now, we talked about regulation, and the whole meaning of having good regulations is to make sure that we can take advantage of the development of science and technology instead of being taken advantage of. From your perspective, Mr. Escalon, what are some of the ways that China could strengthen regulation in this regard?
I'm not sure I would use the word strengthen here, because I think sometimes it's also about pragmatism. It's about having the right regulation and making sure at the same time that they protect what is really important, but within those confines also allow business to grow their potential to the fullest. And I think AI is a good example of that. Clearly, you cannot just allow AI to be completely free-flowing with no sort of oversight. But at the same time, we also just have to recognize that AI perhaps has the potential, again, to provide a productivity boost that we have not seen since the introduction of the internet, right? So it's finding this balance where you protect sort of the safety of humanity, but at the same time allow businesses to thrive. I think data security is another thing. I think a lot of European companies have issues now with the new regulations. It will make it difficult, maybe impossible, for European pharmaceutical companies to do clinical trials in China. That would be a loss not just for China, but for humanity. So these regulations need to be looked at so they can allow clinical trials to take place in China. We will all be better off, right? So it's finding that balance all the time.
Talking about finding balance in regulations and all that legislative stuff, let's take a step back from cutting-edge sectors and go back to, I won't call your global shipping sector as traditional, but your company Maersk certainly has a long history operating in China. And we noticed that this year, the two sessions, whether they're officials or NPC deputies, have mentioned the importance of optimizing the business environment in China, whether it's for the private sector or for foreign investors. What are your major expectations in this regard?
Yeah, first I should mention, you're right, we actually have a long history here. We have 100 years anniversary actually this spring here.
Exactly.
So we've been here since 1924. I think my expectation is that we are addressing some of the fundamental issues that we are seeing in the economy right now. We talked about predictability. I think that is very important for businesses. And then it's about sort of the future economic drivers in the Chinese economy. We talked about growth in demand, growth in consumption, which we think is incredibly important. Then I think one thing maybe we talk too little about is that I think we are very much now occupying ourselves with a very short term. But I think it's important also to look at the shorter term. And there, my advice at home is always that I think China is an incredibly resilient country, and I certainly have a lot of confidence in the long-term prospects of China. So let's keep that in mind while we're addressing some of the short-term issues that we're
Now, gentlemen, let's cross live to the Great Hall of the People, where the closing meeting of this year's NPC session is taking place.
The second session of the 14th National People's Congress has completed all the items on the agenda. Thanks to the efforts of all the deputies and relevant stakeholders, we have secured a very successful meeting, which consolidated our understanding, defined our tasks going forward, and boosted our confidence. It's a meeting of holding high the banner, consolidating consensus, and a conference of solidarity and unity. During the conference, our deputies have bared the trust and responsibilities of the party and the people. They have performed their duty in high spirit. They have deliberated and reviewed the proposals of various types. The result of this meeting has fully demonstrated the alliance of the will of the party and the will of the people. It also showcased the advantage of the whole process people's democracy and China's fundamental political system. Dear deputies, this year marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China. It is a crucial period for us to accomplish the tasks of the 14th five-year plan, earnestly implementing the tasks and achieving the social and economic development goals of the year is of great significance. We must follow the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, and follow through the Xi Jinping thought of socialism with China's characteristics for the new era, unite our efforts, and forge ahead in unity, and advance the Chinese modernization with strong results. We must follow the people-centered development approach, and practice the whole process, people's democracy, respect people's will, their experience, and their rights, and also utilize their innovation and mobilize the whole society in engaging in entrepreneurship and innovation, and mobilize our resources and strength to march ahead. We must seek truth from facts, put down to work, overcome the difficulties, and dare to engage in great endeavors. We must overcome the difficulties one by one, and deliver tangible benefits to the people by accomplishing one task after another. Over the course of united efforts and great endeavors, we will definitely meet people's aspiration for better lives. Dear deputies, solidarity and perseverance are the only way forward to create miracles. Let us unite firmly under the leadership of the CPC Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, unite our strengths and forge ahead to comprehensively advance Chinese modernization and build China into a strong, modern socialist country. Dear deputies, the second session of the 14th National People's Congress has completed all the items on the agenda. Please all rise, sing the national anthem.
The
second plenary session of the National People's Congress concludes.
China's lawmakers have just wrapped up their annual session in Beijing. This also draws this year's two sessions to a close. China's national legislature has adopted the resolutions on the government work report and the revised organic law of the State Council. Deputies approved the reports as well as the draft plans for 2024 on the national economic and social development and central and local budgets. They have also approved the work reports of the NPC Standing Committee, the Supreme People's Court, and the Supreme People's Procuratorate.
And now all the items on the agenda of this year's National People's Congress is completed. Let's check in the latest with my colleague Tian Wei. She's standing by at the East Gate of the Great Hall of the People, the venue of the plenary session. Hi there, Tian Wei. You've been covering this event over the past week. Share with us your observations of this year's two sessions, please.
Mang Pandeng, hello to both of you. This is an important day once again of the year when the two sessions formally wrapped up. Over the past week, it has been a relatively short two sessions for almost a week, and yet there are a lot of topics. Of course, the most important is China's growth and development. 5%, around 5%, according to the government work report. It is, according to some economists, an ambitious goal. Others say there is abundant resources for China to be able to reach that goal. Among them, the most important, of course, as you know, is the new quality productive forces. It is about productive forces focusing on high tech, high efficiency, and high quality. Well, most importantly, it is really based on the innovation power that China has been gaining over the past years. I've been talking to NPC deputies and CPPCC members over the past week. Some of them are outstanding scientists from this country. They have been talking about an adequate system need to be well established in order to attract and maintain the talents into this country. And also there needs to be a right evaluation system established in order to encourage basic research. They say but basic research is not something that you can plan. As they say, it's greatness cannot be planned, but rather it is patience and ardent support for basic research that would bring real benefits to the economy. And they say this is already a lot of efforts are being made, but still more needs to be done. Having said that, though, of course, in the fragmented world, many are wondering about the direction of China's diplomacy. The annual presser of the Chinese foreign minister is an important occasion to tap into the resources that China have and the potential that China is having in mind. And of course, according to the annual presser, the China's foreign policy will once again focusing on building a community of the shared future with the world, and also particularly through cooperation with the global South. This is an important year, 2024, because we are seeing the tremendous backdrop of the world changing and evolving, such as geopolitics, economies in transition, and also explosive development. Really, we can use that adjective of artificial intelligence that is going to transform our economies, our societies for the future years to come. So it seems that, well, we are watching the people's deputies walking out of the Great Hall right behind me. Many of them have been having already their plans in mind for the year. This year, the two sessions wraps up on an very important lunar day in China. It's called Dragon Head Raising Day. This is the very first festival right after the Spring Festival, according to the Chinese lunar calendar. It's the time for the spring. It's the time for planting the seeds and looking forward to a good harvest. I hope this will be the time when we are also working on the implementations of the government work report and work on the future consensus. Back to you, Mang and Pandeng.
Promising season. Thank you so much, Tian Wei, for bringing us that.
And now, in about 20 minutes' time, another event called Ministers Corridor is coming up, in which government ministers and heads of governmental departments are expected to face media directly and answer questions of public concern. So, gentlemen, this year's two sessions have officially concluded. Talking about the legislative side, what are your most impressive highlights, Mr. Zhu?
Well, I think probably two things. One is I think China is staying on the course of trying to boost its economy and then trying to make the I think the society gradually stepping into the higher quality and the higher income level. And the second is I think trying to have the legislatures more attuned or aligned with the economic development, which is I think very important, because we always have, I think, the economy probably moving ahead of the social constructs, but then you need to have certain accommodations of things have changed, and therefore I mean the legislation would have to be up to date and be accommodative or be attuned to that. So in that, I think this direction of travel is quite encouraging.
What about you, Mr. Askelund? Are some of your major concerns been addressed throughout this year's 2 sessions?
First of all, I think around 5% is a very ambitious target, and I think it will take a significant effort to achieve it. It's not going to be easy, but I know that every effort will be done. So that was one thing on the economy. The other thing that stood out are things that are perhaps more people-oriented, like hukou reform, make it easier to obtain an urban hukou, which I think is one of the things that can boost both consumption and productivity also, if you allow for that. Skilled workers, we talked a little bit about that. I think it's super important that you improve the standing and the availability of these and make it something that is aspirational for young people also. And then I think the labor market also, because it is tough, as we know, in particular for young graduates to find a job now. So it's important that there is a sustained focus on developing the jobs. Maybe one thing that we as employers should also look at is maybe become more flexible in the way that we look at graduates, that we do not necessarily need to look at exactly what it says on the diploma, but try to look at what type of person is it, what are the skills, that kind of value they can create for the company. So I think we maybe also have a task in how we look at young graduates. Yeah. But I wish the best of luck in these endeavors.
Yes, it's joining forces.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Askelund, you mentioned the word resilience just moments ago, and that's exactly where policymakers and investors base their confidence on Chinese economy. And looking from a global perspective now, how much strength could China's economy offer to the development to perhaps the recovery of the world economy as a whole?
Yeah. I still think when sort of you look at the basics of the Chinese economy, I still think the Chinese economy itself has significant development potential. It is not nowhere near the end point of its development potential. So now the trick must be to find the policies that will allow for China to fully realize that potential. And given the size and scale of the Chinese economy, the second largest in the world, that is something that will have positive implications for the global economy if China is able to do so. But it does take courage, because I think it was also clear from the NPC that the old model will not necessarily work for the future. We need to think in new ways, find new sources of growth, find new ways to set the economy free. And if China succeeds with this, I think it's good news for the rest of the world also. Certainly it's in no one's interest if China does not succeed.
I'd like to follow up on that. I think it's very important that we keep in mind it is not just the speed, but also the size of China's economy that makes China so important to the world. I think China in 2023 was making about a third of the contribution of the entire global GDP growth. And even for 2025, at a slower pace, I think China is still going to make about 28 to 29% of the global growth, far greater than the number 2 or the number 3 in the world. So in that regard, I think people tend to fixate their attention on how fast China is growing without fully acknowledging how big China has already grown. Mm-hmm. So I think this is something, the combination of the two is really meaningful to both business community and also to the global economy overall.
Indeed, and domestically speaking, it's also about no one's left behind. So we've seen a couple of layers to guarantee that in the government work report, consolidating the achievements in poverty alleviation, and also how to guarantee the basic livelihoods of those low income and people with difficulties, whether it's physical or intangible difficulties in their lives. What do you make of China's recent efforts in this particular regard?
I think China has done a spectacular job in, being more inclusive. I think in that regard, China has successfully lifting over 300 million people out of extreme poverty over the past decade. So this is something that is really admirable in the entire global arena. Another thing is, I think you can see that China is stepping up its efforts, trying to provide better social welfare programs, especially after what has happened in COVID. I think in terms of hospital, in terms of public health, in terms of educational programs, just so that people are better aware of how to protect themselves or how to maintain good health. So I think that is a very honorable effort. And again, going back to global pharmaceutical companies, I think they're really so passionate about China, not just because of the large size of the population, but also because public policy has been really focusing on those areas. And then I think, coming from the educational sector, I think we're seeing, one is, I think we're trying to be more strategic with not just the college education, but also high school education in a way about, well, we want to provide a better incentive for people to say, hey, maybe I shouldn't pursue all the way going to college. I should try to go to vocational training, which will give me a better career and a better life. So I think that is gradually happening. And we're also seeing increasing investment on, continuing education on vocational skills. In light of technology and science development. It's not really important what you studied 20 years ago. It's more about what you can do in this new environment. So how to better equip, skilled workers at the various levels and from different generations to have even greater or newer skills so that they can be more updated with what the job market requires. I think this is something which we can see, we can even read from the work report of the State Council. I think this is also going into the correct direction.
Go ahead.
One thing I would need to comment on also, of course, as a foreigner in China, is the foreign minister's Wang Yi's comment, for example, in regards to visa-free travel. I think it's a very important step. Of course, I'm representing 27 EU countries, and so far it's only 6 that got visa-free travel. We hope it will get expanded because it is important. I think the biggest single casualty of COVID perhaps was people-to-people engagement, and that has basically been dormant for 3.5, 4 years, and it has not recovered fully. This is one of those steps that could really help. We know it's a hassle for everyone, whether it's Europeans going from China or Chinese going to Europe to get the visa. So I think this is a very concrete step that could help that. There are other things that happened. A lot of things happened in the digital space with digital payments in China, and because there were no one coming here during COVID, you didn't have to consider it. But now we are in a situation where we want to sort of reconnect. So it's important we find a way that also make it possible for people to actually travel here. And I know a lot of things are happening there, but I think it's something we continuously need to work on. How do we facilitate these exchanges? Invite more people, have students coming here. I'm alarmed by the drop in European students going to China, because it's really necessary that we have people who come here and get a deep understanding of the country. So let's commit to get that done.
I'm glad you mentioned visa exemptions. These 6 countries, the policy exemptions are unilateral, and we do look forward to policies to change on both ways. Now, so as we mentioned, China's visa exemption with Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia is an important step in diplomatic relations and will help the recovery of the region's tourism industry. But visa-free travel is not just about leisure or tourism. It's a strategic necessity for promoting economic integration, regional connectivity, and fostering cultural exchanges between nations. Our correspondent Dusita Saukau has this report.
It picture perfectly encapsulates the uniqueness of Thai culture. The ornate details of age-old temples, the traditional wares, the peaceful ambience. Behind the scenes of this serenity are crowds of Chinese tourists, adorned in Thai attire, waiting to get that one perfect shot. Getting pictures like this has fast become a trend. Thai costume rental shops have mushroomed around key tourist hotspots, mainly catering to Chinese tourists that have come back in droves. A visa-free policy is set to bolster these numbers, as the country expects up to 20,000 Chinese tourists a day. But beneath the numbers and the economics, these scenes are fostering something else. A beautiful display of cultural exchange, a symbiotic understanding between tourists and locals.
Thailand has officially entered its visa-free era with China. It is clear that by simplifying travel procedures and removing visa barriers will lead to a robust tourism recovery. But visa policies also play a crucial role in strengthening regional connectivity and providing a bridge that connects cultures and peoples.
Traveling between two countries will bring us closer. It opens the door to the heart. Everything is open. There is no obstruction between two countries. When there are no borders, anything is possible.
The Chinese market has long been the biggest source of tourists for ASEAN countries, as the region is not only geographically close, but has strong cultural and economic ties with China. The facilitation of unrestricted travel to visa-free countries like Thailand, Singapore, and Malaysia is expected to serve as a catalyst for further economic cooperation and collaboration between China and Southeast Asian countries.
This will rapidly deepen the economic links between China and ASEAN. The direction from now on, I think, is positive and will be in line with China's strategic efforts regarding the Belt and Road Initiative. The region will certainly benefit from these measures in the long run.
It's a new chapter in travel freedom through a region that is becoming increasingly connected. It's a treasure trove of cultural exchanges, business opportunities, and friendship-forging moments. A testament to the strength of diplomatic ties and the endless possibilities that can arise from opening doors and breaking down barriers. Lucita Sao Gao, CGTN, Bangkok, Thailand.
You're watching a special coverage on CGTN on China's annual political season. In about 10 minutes' time, an event called Ministers Corridor, in which government ministers are going to meet media directly and answer questions of public concern. Now, being specific on China's efforts in ecological conservation, China has been strengthening its efforts in this particular regard in recent years and to promote green and low carbon development in the year 2024. As these are highlighted during the country's Central Economic Work Conference, and China is home to the world's largest planted forest area, with its forest coverage rate doubling from 12% in the early 1980s to 24.02% nowadays. Statistics show that almost 9.6 million electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids were manufactured in China last year, up 35.8% year-on-year. China also reported nearly 9.5 million NEVs being sold last year, up 37.9% from the previous year. China's new energy vehicle production and sales also accounted for more than 60% of the global proportion, ranking first in the world for 9 consecutive years. And China's total installed capacity of renewable energy topped 1,516 gigawatts by the end of last year, accounting for 51.9% of the country's total installed power generation capacity. China also contributed to nearly 40% of the global installed capacity of renewables.
Right, and let's also take a look at this story. An Argentine scholar from the University of Buenos Aires has praised China's leading role in new energy field. He says China's new quality productive forces focus on harmony between environmental and economic development.
También se está apostando muy fuerte a la transición energética.
China is also pushing ahead with its energy transition. I see wind turbines going up, and I see a lot of solar parks. China's development of new quality productive forces is not just about economic growth. It's also about harmonious development, taking into account the needs of the environment and the overall development of the country.
As China continues to open up its border, foreigners living here have started to notice that green development is not just a slogan or a mission statement. It's now becoming a part of real life here. And my colleague Wei is Malaysian, who's been living in China for 9 years. Here's what he had to say on how green mentality is changing his daily life.
I'm Wei from Malaysia. I've been living in China for almost 9 years. China is massive. It's almost 29 times the size of Malaysia. But despite its size, getting around Chinese cities is easy. One of my favorite ways to get around here is through shared bikes. It's cheap, it's hassle-free, and I don't need to worry about maintenance or losing my bike. Just scan a QR code and ride on.
And today, I'm off to the bank. In Beijing alone last year, shared bikes have been used over 1 billion times. Think about all the carbon emissions cut. And of course, the muscles gained. There are many EVs on the road, and lately I'm thinking of getting one myself. I read that China has been pushing for green energy transition. Last year alone, China's NEV purchase tax exemptions totaled $16 billion. That's almost $1,700 off for every vehicle. Plus, there are 8.6 million charging piles across the country, so I don't have to worry about my car running out of juice. But I'm still torn between BYD and Tesla. I'm impressed by BYD's growing presence and their innovations in battery technology. But then, there's always Tesla's appeal of being a pioneer in the EV market. Tesla has been a huge hit in China. In fact, Tesla's Shanghai Gigafactory delivered more cars last year than all other countries combined. I'll probably need more time to decide on my dream car, but until then, a QR code is all I need. So I've arrived at my destination. And look, it's only 3 kwai for a 44-minute ride.
What a ride, and a green ride indeed. Gentlemen, let's talk about this. Still, Mr. Zhu, I'd like to focus on transformation. So what makes this green transition happen in China? I believe it's not only about policies and cost.
I think a lot of factors have come into play for this very successful transition into a more renewable and a more environmentally friendly push. I think one is, of course, it starts with the policy. I think policy is always the most important thing in China, setting the guidance, setting the direction for the whole nation. But I think, the second thing is, we do have the business community, which are, attuned to the policy's orientation. So in a way, I think both for the new energy vehicles and for the energy storage and the battery, I think we have business people who are trying really hard, working very hard, and being very entrepreneurial, exploring all the possibilities and finding the best solution. And then in the end, we have researchers who are trying to provide the solutions what the business need and what the market needs. But all in all, I think China is really successful in, picking the right direction for the next decade, if not decades. I think it is not just for the benefits of Chinese people or China. This is really, in the greater benefits of the whole world about the reduction in carbon emission and also trying to provide new technology for the whole world to follow up on. And I think it's also very fortunate by providing a common ground which China and can work very well with the more developed economies, Europe and America. I think this is one area which we could see a lot of areas of opportunity. So in a way that we still try to look for the common ground, try to engage in dialogue and communications, and through that, hopefully can expand into a broader range of issues. So I think that's really fortunate that we come across a new energy transformation, not just for China's own sake, for the sake of the whole world.
And I like to pursue something you mentioned moments earlier. You said Chinese enterprises and entrepreneurs have this ability to understand the market, the special and small demands from the market. For example, that perhaps includes the wisdom to explore, to discover, explore, and to fill in niche markets. For example, bike sharing, as we just saw. And then China's taking the lead in new energy manufacturing as well as exports. Just how crucial is that ability in further exploring markets, not only domestically, but also on an international stage?
It's highly crucial. I think it is really important. It's not just about we have the technology, it's about how to bridge the technology with the market and with the investment. So for that, I think China is really fortunate. One is, I think we have been known in the whole world for being very entrepreneur, very hardworking, and very true to our words. I think that is very helpful. But another, I think, new development in the past 20 years or so is China's adoption of mobile internet or mobile technology. So in a way that the information, the location of information, how I can better serve you given where you are, I think that kind of customization really provides a new wave of technology and services. And I think for that, I think China's provision of goods in the US, this is, for example, what Temu and Shein is doing. I think it's really putting Amazon on the back foot in their home court. So in a way, I think it's not just about understanding Chinese customers or marketing. It is this spirit about trying to better understand and serve your customers, period.
And this is also somehow embodied in China's diplomacy or international cooperation programs like the Belt and Road Initiative. Notice, for example, in recent years, China has stopped all coal-fired power plant overseas and has been emphasizing this green focus in BRI projects. What do you make of this effort?
No, but we think that's absolutely a positive, that there'll be no more coal-powered power plants in Belt and Road. It's one of these things that we need to see, and we hope that that is also being expanded domestically in China, because China is, and that's actually a positive. China is at the same time the undisputed leader within green technology, whether it's battery, solar, wind, you name it, but at the same time also by far the world's largest CO2 emitter. But that actually fits very well together, because you need that capacity to generate green power in order to really reduce the CO2 emissions. So that's actually a positive. And of course, it's a positive for the world also. China will be a crucial enabler for the world to get close to the ambitious climate targets that have been set. And I think the world would be worse off if we are not making use of that potential that Chinese technology has to help us bring down emissions.
And China has also raised this very ambitious carbon peaking and, of course, carbon neutrality targets, and putting that into the all-green context, green development of China. What kind of opportunities that will create for foreign businesses?
I think you're seeing sort of the evolution of an entirely new ecosystems. And I think the challenge for foreign business is that, how can we come to play a role of that? How can we take part of that? And that's where we hope, of course, that sort of China's integration with the rest of the world will continue to be at this high level, and that we will find ways and will be allowed to participate in some of these things. I think one of the key advantages that China has had is that it's such a fantastically large market. And if you take an airplane from Beijing to Gansu province, you will see thousands of kilometers basically paved with solar panels and windmills and so on. It has been difficult for foreign companies to participate that, either because they have not been able to participate in public procurement or for cost reasons or others. And that's where I think the world could gain from participation, by allowing each other to participate in each other's markets. And I think really this is something we owe to future generations.
Yeah. And then also I think given China's excellence in the infrastructure development, I think it's providing MNCs the opportunity to do what they want to but cannot outside China. I will just give you one anecdote. I think there's
right,
one.
Gentlemen, the Ministers' Corridor event is about to
hold your thoughts. We'll be getting
yes.
back to you in just a moment. The National People's Congress has concluded, and now ministers are taking questions from the press.
Good afternoon, everyone. The second plenary session of the 14th NPC will have its third Ministers' Corridor, and today we have invited 5 ministers to take your questions. They are Minister of Culture and Tourism Sun Yeli, Minister of Central Administration of Customs Yu Jianhua, Minister of National Financial Regulatory Administration Liu Yingchuan, and Mr. Gao Zhidan, Minister of General Administration of Sport, and Mr. Shen Changyu, Minister of China National Intellectual Property Administration. Now, first of all, let's invite Minister Sun from Ministry of Culture and Tourism. Dear journalists, good afternoon. Now we open the floor to questions. Thank you. From CMG. Minister Sun, good afternoon. Last year, tourism in Harbin was booming, and people are putting their sight on the tourism industry, and netizens are calling for your interest. And as the Minister of Culture and Tourism, what's your take about such a heat of culture-based tourism, and will this heat continue? I hear the call from the netizens, and also thank you for that piece of information. I would love to first of all thank our media friends. Thank you for your long-term support of the industry of culture and tourism. As you have mentioned, last winter, the ice and snow-based tourism in Harbin was very popular. The northeastern locals extended their hospitality to the visitors by offering supreme services, attracting visitors from nationwide. It was quite a phenomenon. Last year, during the winter season, according to local statistics, starting from November to February next year, the number of visitors to Harbin was about 120 million. Revenue was about 170 billion RMB yuan. Tourism development in Harbin also triggered the booming tourism industry in the entire northeastern China. Jilin province and Liaoning province were not as popular, but still they benefited. Days ago, I listened to the deputies from Jilin saying that in this season, tourism revenue in Jilin province was no less than 170 billion RMB yuan. Maybe the same thing is happening in Liaoning province. As President Xi said, ice and snow could be turned into good revenue, just like the green environment. Days ago, we published statistics about tourism during the Spring Festival. In China, the number of tourists was about 470 million during the Spring Festival. And the total expenditure in tourism was about 630 billion RMB yuan. And you could imagine the size. It's only for 8 days. If you look at the statistics year-round, it's colossal. Last year, the total number of visitors was about 4.9 billion. So consumption or expenditure in tourism was approaching 5 trillion RMB yuan. Tourism contributed greatly to job creation and domestic demand. Now, the culture and tourism together with culture-based exhibition are very popular. Maybe you have seen that in front of the Palace Museum, there are very long lines during the days of the 2 sessions. I think it's the same thing with the museums in other places. As to the artistic performances, it's the same thing. Last year, in that business of performances, offline, there were about 44 of them. The ticket revenue was exceeding 50 billion RMB yuan. As to performances online, it was thriving even more. It is estimated to exceed 200 billion. And the total revenue, the total number of performers, part of this was about 770 million. Last year, we saw a great recovery of culture and tourism. But some people are arguing that we had such a boom of culture and tourism because of a rebound from the COVID-19 time. But we believe in the necessity we believe that such a thriving industry has some factors behind them. For example, people's aspiration for better lives has been changing since we are aiming at building a well-off society in our own way. Previously, we only sought for the basic needs to be met, but now we could have some extra money to support our need for tourism. So we are seeking more poetic lives. And tourism has become an integral part of people's aspiration for better lives. If we look at the development of industries, culture and tourism industry has a longer industrial chain with wider areas to benefit. Culture and tourism can support the development of hundreds of other industries because they are very popular and they can open sources. If we look at the course of modernization in China, according to the 20th National Congress report, President Xi mentioned that high-quality growth is the first priority for building a modernized country. So how to realize it? We must meet the demand for high-quality consumption. And how to meet that high-end consumption need? There must be some offering from the high-quality culture sector, and that could help to formulate high-end consumption, with which high-quality development will be a reality. And in turn, high-quality development can help to offer higher quality cultural products to meet people's cultural pursuits. That is conducive to realizing China's modernization. And those could be the backgrounds behind the heat of culture and tourism. It's only natural for culture and tourism to sustain the heat and the popularity. Since netizens are calling for attention from the Ministry of Culture and Tourism, I think we will certainly bear in mind that urge from the public and keep up the good work. According to President Xi, people's aspiration for a better life should be the target of our striving. And the CPC Central Committee puts high premium on the business of culture and tourism and has introduced a series of favorable policies and measures to trigger the consumption sector and cultural tourism. In the government work report this year, Premier Li Qiang stressed that we must cultivate culture, tourism, and some other sectors to generate new consumption drivers, especially the cultural industry. The central government has certain arrangements and the general public have some expectations, and we will be incentivized. Together with others, we will try to implement the decisions and arrangements from the CPC Central Committee and the State Council. We will build up our infrastructure, improve the quality of culture and tourism sector, and standardize the market of culture and tourism. With high-quality cultural development and tourism development, we can meet people's higher demand for a better life. Thank you.
Next question, please. Thank you. With Hong Kong Wenhui newspaper. You talked about the boom of tourism last year, but in reality, we believe that there are still some difficulties. For example, it's very hard to get a ticket to major performances and museums, and there are also ticket scalpers. And also, when foreign travelers travel into China, they find it very challenging to make mobile payments. So what are the future plans of the Ministry of Culture and Tourism? Thank you very much for your question. You actually asked 4 questions, and actually it's more than 4 questions. We're not afraid of questions. What we're truly afraid is not knowing where the questions are, because with the question comes a solution. When we have identified the question, we will know where and how to solve it. So your questions are very constructive. Thank you very much for those questions. Those are the objective reality and the realistic questions that we face. It tells us that there is the gap between our offerings and people's aspirations. And these questions are well reported online, and we are taking some measures to rectify these issues. Some of those rectification measures have become very successful. For example, the difficulties in booking a ticket for large performances. We've taken some targeted measures. For example, we can offer delayed services for some major museums, and they need to extend the business hours. We need to simplify the procedures of ticket booking, and we encourage our travelers to book different time slots for their visits. We also dynamically adjust the number of tickets that we offer to the visitors. We also have taken some human-centered approaches. If you are an adult, you can take 1 or 2 or 3 kids to the museum. Some of the parents, they are visiting the museum with their twin children. There are some very friendly arrangements that's bringing tangible benefits to our visitors. We have physical windows for people to purchase tickets offline if you cannot find an online channel to do that. So that foreign visitors and senior citizens, they have a chance to enter those museums too. But let me also say that restricting the visitor flow is a general practice globally, because we try to avoid people gathering in a confined space within a very short period of time, because this is not safe, and it may also bring damage to our artifacts being exhibited. That is also hurting the travel experiences. Let me say that China has rich and extensive cultural and tourism resources. We have a great number of medium-sized and small exhibitions and museums, apart from those major and large museums. So if you cannot make it to the large museum, try your luck at the small and medium-sized museums, and you might find some astonishing discoveries. You also talked about the issue of ticket scalpers. In particular, after we have gone through the smooth transition of our COVID-19 response measures, and there were some ticket scalpers. We have paid close attention to that and have taken 2 measures. Number 1, we encourage ticket purchase on a real name basis. And number 2, we request that all the tickets of shows and concerts, they need to set a quota for online sales of tickets, and the quota should be about 45%. So this has significantly reduced the phenomenon of ticket scalping. You also talked about fraudulences in some of the tourist destinations. Yes, those are realistic problems that we face, but we are determined to take some measures. Whenever we encounter such a problem, we will get into contact with the local authorities, and wherever we identify a illegitimate behavior, we will initiate the compensation procedure, and those violators, they will be punished. In so doing, we can deliver a much more standardized market. You also talked about the issue of payment for foreign visitors, and this is something we have not anticipated in the past. As China develops digitally, mobile payments has become very popular amongst our population. And right now, mobile payment is more popular in China than anywhere else in the whole world. With one cell phone, you can solve all the problems nowadays in China. But this is because we are far ahead, that there is a gap between Chinese travelers and foreign travelers. And when foreign travelers come into China, they find it difficult to make payments with their phones. And when this problem has been widely discussed, we have established special mechanisms to solve this problem. Prior to the 2 sessions, on March the 1st, an office of the State Council has released measures to optimize payment services for foreign visitors, and we are right now putting these measures on the ground. So we will make it possible for foreign visitors to make payment by simply scanning the code or with their credit card. We used to experience a period where payment is made by credit card. But right now, the POS machines are outdated. But right now, if you go to Shanghai, you will find out that updating their payment facilities, bringing back the POS machines, which allows their guests to swipe their credit card. And we have even traveled there and tried with our own credit card, and it works. And in Beijing, we will also upgrade the payment facilities for foreign visitors. If we're talking about a small amount, you can simply pay with your phone by scanning the code. Mobile payment is also practiced overseas, but we're simply talking about 2 different QR code systems. And we want to break through the 2 different systems so as to simplify the procedures of bundling your phone with a bank card. And there is also the issue of payment quota. On the precondition of ensuring financial safety, we will try to increase the quota of small sum payment. And foreign visitors, they are getting used to mobile payment in China, and when they use it, they will find how convenient it is. But we also allow payment with cash. I want all of you to tell the story that China allows payment with cash. It is illegal for any merchants to refuse the payment with cash. And they also need to prepare some cash just in case they need to return some pennies or bucks. We encourage honest and credit behaviors amongst all merchants. In terms of the convenience of foreign visitors in China, we are streamlining our procedures, solving problems one by one, ranging from visa application to flights, to check-in a hotel, and to payment. Whenever there is an issue, we will get on top of it and get it solved. We believe that these measures, when they are translated into reality, foreign visitors will find it very convenient when traveling into China, and they will be entitled to all the convenience services in terms of eating, checking a hotel, or traveling. And we welcome more foreign visitors to come into China to appreciate the beauty of Chinese culture and the profound history of China, and to get to know the development miracle that we have created over the years, and also have a taste of the courtesy and generosity and friendliness of the Chinese people. Welcome to China. Thank you.
Next, let's welcome the second minister, Minister of Central Administration of Customs, Mr. Yu Jianhua. Now we open the floor to questions. Thank you. From Xinhua News Agency. Good afternoon, Mr. Yu. The administration just published the data about import and export. So what is the general situation of foreign trade, and what measures will the administration take to implement the goal of foreign trade as has been mentioned in the government work report? Thank you for the questions. As you know, Central Administration of Customs is responsible for the organization and publishing of the foreign trade statistics, and we follow closely the change of import and export. According to the statistics, we continue the recovery in this year, and we got off to a very good start in many ways. For example, in terms of the scale, we broke the historical record. In the first 2 months this year, export and import reached 6.6 trillion, an increase of 8.7%, and export increased by 10.3%. Compared to the previous historical high realized in 2022, that was an increase of 430 billion RMB yuan. Of course, even denominated by US dollars, we also registered an increase in import and export. If you look at the quality, we have higher quality of growth. We have more diversified trading partners in the traditional market, and in emerging markets, we performed well, especially with the countries along the BRI initiative. Export and import increased by 9%, higher than the growth rate on average. As a big manufacturer, China is playing a significant role. As to the increase of the intermediate goods, we had an increase of 8%. The new forms of business and new drivers are maintaining a good momentum. For example, the cross-border e-commerce registered rapid growth. In terms of the creative goods, makeup, the NEVs, and some other local brands, they are very popular overseas. If you look at the trend in general, we are accumulating more favorable conditions. According to the statistic from customs, in the first 2 months this year, the applicants for customs clearance had an increase of about 10%, and the transportation for inbound and outbound services, there was an increase as well in terms of transportation flow. People have more confidence, and both in China and abroad, we could sense a high vitality. And also, the proportion of enterprises expecting to increase export and import also went up by 23 percentage points. In general, this year, China's foreign trade got off to a good start, and we could judge roughly that we are able to maintain such growth momentum within a certain reasonable range. And according to the government work report, asking for quality improvement and steady quantity, I think we are grounded to realize the goals. But of course, we are confronted with many complicated factors requiring us to strive hard. And under such circumstances, the administration will work on the following too. First of all, we will step up our efforts to execute the 19 measures introduced last year to improve the business environment. And also on top of the new requirements this year, we will come up with some targeted facilitation measures as well. We will take the lead to offer more convenience to the cross-border trade with some special campaigns. And we will offer more convenience to the enterprises, particularly. Together with the other ministries, we will make such an intermediate goods list in order to promote the development of trade of the intermediate goods. As to the rebate of products on the e-commerce platform, we will also improve the environment. And also, we will also come up with certain measures to promote the trade in the bordering areas. Secondly, we will optimize our services. We will play the role as the single window opening to the outside world in terms of foreign trade, in terms of trade, logistics, and other stages. We will be the comprehensive service station, and there will be even doorstep services from the customs office. With the long-term mechanism in place, we will listen to the calls of the enterprises and take targeted measures. In addition, the administration will continue to monitor and analyze the trade statistics and do our survey of the overall situation. We will offer more services to the enterprises in production and customs clearance. Thank you. Next question.
Thank you. In the government work report this year, we vowed to build an intelligent customs office. What are the specific plans? Thank you for your question. It's a good one. According to the work report of the government this year, we will enshrine the construction of a smart customs office as the key task. And this is not just involving Chinese customs, but also the whole world. We need to look at this issue from three perspectives. First, demand. China Customs, as the customs office of the largest trading country in the whole world, each and every year, we handle a great amount of cargoes, containers, and transportation means, and this is quite unprecedented. On the other hand, international trade is now featuring a chain of smaller and smaller parcels, and right now, cross-border parcels and cross-border e-commerce, they handle a total of more than 7 billion parcels each year, and that gives you an idea of the enormous workload that we are handling. And also, entities of foreign trade are becoming more and more diversified. 10 years ago, there were only 350,000 foreign trading companies, and last year it reached more than 630,000. Behind this positive change are the rising risks and difficulties for our work as customs. We need to deal with fraudulences and hiding of information and goods at the border, and we're dealing with more risks. The means and approaches of work that we took in the past are no longer able to deal with the changing situation as we face today. So it is imperative for us to build smart customs. It is also an urgent task. And second, we believe we have the supporting facilities. In recent years, we have been practicing a single window and also custom clearance approaches, and we have accumulated some very successful practice. In the meantime, AI, cloud computing, and big data, they are materially applied in all the scenarios. They are willing to provide us with effective solutions. And third, there is this expectation from the market. All the customs in the whole world They want to modernize the operations of customs. Chinese customs, each and every year, we handle the largest amount of goods and cargo. We handle the most scenarios, and we practice the maximum business scenarios and models. So we have the resolve and confidence and experience to explore the most effective model for customs operations so as to facilitate the international trade and make it more convenient and safe. Over the years, we have been implementing the instructions of Xi Jinping on building smart customs, building safe borders, and making safe connections in some of the key areas. We have made some meaningful explorations and achieved some achievements. There are multiple experiences and cases, and let me share with you one case. In recent years, we have seen some travelers bringing in beneficial insects from overseas, and they pose a threat to China's biosafety. In light of the situation, we are using big data models, and we painted a picture of 3,000 beneficial insects, and we also worked out a simulating database. Using a special technology, we allow machines to automatically identify and recognize those beneficial insects, and that has significantly enhanced our work. Last year, we have identified more than 44,000 such insects. The fundamental goal of building a smart customs is to take the initiative to take various measures with some technological means so that illegal behaviors can be contained, and enterprises engaged in illegal operation, they can be punished and identified. Going forward, we are going to improve our work plan by formulating a timetable and a scheme that encompasses near-term, mid-term, and long-term plans. We will accelerate our work so as to serve the construction of a stronger socialist country with smart Chinese customs, and also empower the modernization drive of China. At the same time, contribute the Chinese wisdom and Chinese solutions to the smart customs building of the whole world. That is why we are going to strengthen exchanges and cooperation with customs all over the world. At the same time, we will step up our coordination with our local counterparts so as to achieve integrated data and shared data and information and form a joint strength. In this process, we welcome the support and attention from all walks of social life, and we also hope that our friends from the media can cover our progress. Thank you.
Now let's invite Minister of National Financial Regulatory Administration, Mr. Li Yunze. Now you're free to ask questions. Thank you. From the China Securities Journal, Minister Li, the diffusion of financial risks is a buzzword right now. For example, the settlement of the SMEs, and also you are aiming at cracking down on illegal financial behaviors. And what's your take about the situation right now in the financial market and how to defend the risks from the financial sector? Thank you for the questions. And also, I would love to thank all the media friends for your long-term support of the financial sector. And the prevention of financial risks is an eternal task for us. It matters to people's property safety and our national safety. As the regulatory administration, defending against the financial risk is the top priority for us. We will implement the arrangements from the Central Financial Work Conference and follow the pathway of financial development with Chinese characteristics to defend against the systemic financial risks. As to my take of the status quo in the financial sector and what we can do to deal with the financial risks, first of all, about the situation of financial risks. First of all, right now, in China, in general, the financial risks are within control. The banks, insurance companies are in steady operation. In particular, the major financial institutions have very stable operation. So it is fair to say that the fundamentals of the financial sector are sound. If you compare with the domestic or international regulation criteria, the major standards in the financial sector are normal. And by the end of last year, the non-performing loan ratio in the banking sector was 11.6%, and the asset adequacy ratio was 15%. The insurance payment ratio was 100 and even more. And in some places, there might be some small-sized financial institutions with high risks. But in terms of the number of those institutions or the scale of the credit, they are taking a lower proportion in the entire financial system. And also, we are meeting with the local party committee and local government to come up with the measures to guard against financial risks. Second of all, in face of the financial risks, we have sufficient resources and conditions to respond to them. We follow the leadership of the CPC Central Committee with the system advantages, and we can concentrate all the resources on doing one good deed. And the overall and long-term trend of the financial sector remain unchanged. And that would be the guarantee for the measures going against the financial risks. And in the insurance sector, the provisions exceeded 50 trillion RMB yuan. We also have the financial-related insurance fund and the funds in different sectors. So we have very solid ground to guard against financial risks. In addition, in terms of the instruments to deal with the financial risks, they are more diversified. Especially after the Financial Work Conference last year, the mechanisms to deal with the financial risks got improved. And we have the confidence and conditions and capability to safeguard financial safety in China. The third thing I would love to mention is high-quality growth is the one way to diffuse the financial risks. And financial sector was born with risks. The key is to effectively control the risks, to prevent the financial and economic sectors to have big ups and downs. Decades ago, the state-owned commercial banks used to face major challenges and risks. And then after reorganization and marketing, they successively diffused the risks, and their overall capacity rank among the top in the world. So we must foster correct concept of risks, and we must be objective in reviewing the risks in terms of economic and social development with high quality. We must also pursue high quality financial development. As to how, right now, we should focus on the following measures. First of all, we must be farsighted. That is to say, we must take early actions and be very active in conquering the difficulties. For example, we must source to the root and correct the wrongdoings very early and set up such a whole process, risk prevention mechanism to have early recognition, early warning, early exposure, and early settlement. Meanwhile, we will speed up our big data development so that we could have an overall grasp of the situation, and we pursue the digitalization and intelligence of the regulation. Second, targeted measures. We will introduce targeted measures to solve the pragmatic issues, and we will categorize our measures based on the different regions. And with the precise measures, we will try to reduce the risks and avoid any emerging new risks. And we will take sustainable measures in this battle, especially for the reform of the small and medium-sized financial institutions. And meanwhile, we will ensure timeliness of the measures. And while we are dealing with the risks, we must avoid any further risks to come up in this process to ensure the stability of our economy. And next, we must strengthen our supervision, especially in 5 areas. We will take measures to abide by the rule of law in financial regulation, to fill in the loopholes of our systems and mechanisms in order to improve the efficacy of the law execution process in the financial sector. For the key persons, key behaviors, we will crack down upon them if they pose major risks to financial stability. Fourth, pursue the effective synergy. We will try to work together with the others, and for all financial behaviors, we will monitor them closely. We will take the lead to set up the accountability system and ensure the bottoms. And for the different industries, we must properly manage the risks. And in terms of abiding by the law, we must focus more on the illegal behaviors in our regulation, and we must also coordinate with the local party committee and the local people's government so that we shoulder our due responsibilities and take certain measures in coordination. And today I would love to take this opportunity to give some warnings to the consumers. Please be aware about some illegal financial behaviors that may present themselves in different forms, and we also invite the media groups to work with us to publicize on such illegal behaviors and our measures to crack down upon them. Thank you.
Next question, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, Minister Li. I'm with South China Investment Daily. According to the government work report, this year we need to improve the overall quality of the Chinese economy. What measures will your ministry take to support the financial insurance industry of China, as well as the banking sector? Thank you for your question. Real economy is the foundation of the financial industry, and the financial industry is the lifeblood of the real economy. The two go hand in hand. In recent years, according to the arrangement of the State Council and CPC Central Committee, we encouraged the financial industry to come back and focus on the real economy so as to make their contribution to the recovery of the real economy. In general, we have seen one rise and one fall. The rise is the rise in improving the service quality, and they also improved the service scope, ranging from Mohe in the north and Sansha in the south, so that we have our service outlets in every township. The overall financial asset of China has exceeded 46 trillion yuan, significantly improving its support to the real economy. And last year, newly added loans reached more than 1.3 trillion yuan. in high technology, smart and green enterprises, they have saw a credit loan increase of more than 20%, and the support of the insurance sector has been significantly enhanced. We have paid a total of more than 1.2 trillion yuan worth of insurance claims during the major floods last year in Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei region. We have disbursed a compensation of more than 12.6 billion yuan. So this is truly demonstrating the buffering role of the insurance. The FA refers to the reduction of the comprehensive financial and financing cost. The interest rate for loans has been brought to a historic low. Last year, we also worked together with the People's Bank of China so as to reduce the loan interest for the first home that people buy, saving 170 billion yuan worth of mortgage interest every year. We also work together with banks to reduce the handling charge. For 3 consecutive years, it has been going down. And for those car purchasers, they can save a total of more than 140 billion yuan worth of financial service charges. And we are mindful of the deficiencies and weak links of the financial service sector. And right now, what's truly important is to promote the circulation of capital, assets, and financial wealth, so as to make breakthroughs in some bottleneck issues and solve the problem where there is capital but no financial investment channels. We need to make important breakthroughs in solving the bottleneck issues. We're going to follow through the government work report to deepen the supply-side reform of the financial sector and strive to provide stronger financial support to the real economy. We will mainly focus on the following 3 areas. First, serve the new quality productive forces. This will become a key grasp of our work. We are going to comprehensively support technological innovation. In January this year, we have circulated a special document allowing us to provide full life-cycle financial services to the high-tech enterprises. At the same time, we are working together with financial investment companies to expand the pilot program of equity investment so as to step up our support to startup enterprises. We also have plans to support the green sector. This means we're going to practice green trusting services and insurance and financial services and financing services so as to drive China's low-carbon green transformation. We stand ready to support up-and-coming sectors and emerging industries. At the same time, we will support the digital transformation of traditional enterprises and industries so as to cultivate new growth drivers. Second, serve effective demands in terms of consumption. We will guide financial institutions to trigger and increase a new type of consumption and recover the traditional consumption. We support the trading services for consumer goods. We are researching into relevant measures to reduce the low interest for the first car people purchase. And we're also working on a pricing mechanism for new energy vehicles. In terms of investment, we are going to step up our support to major projects and programs. Meanwhile, we are going to implement the financing mechanism for real estate sector and support the construction of affordable housings in cities. In terms of foreign trade, we are going to actively support EVs and other 3 new sectors of Chinese made-in-China products so as to give them more targeted, comprehensive financial services. Additionally, we are going to expand the coverage of export credit insurance. We're also going to improve our inclusive financial services. A special campaign is rolled out to support credit support to small and micro-sized enterprises. We take all market entities as equals, and we will step up our support to private enterprises. In old age care and healthcare industry, we are going to support private entities to supplement the offerings of insurance and healthcare products. For delivery services and those who are engaged in the platform economy, we insurance companies to come up with some special products. In terms of disaster relief and prevention, we're going to extend the coverage of agricultural insurance products. At the same time, we're going to develop some disaster-related insurances. This will allow us to come up with better services for disaster relief. Ladies and gentlemen, as we put behind us the 2 sessions this year, we're going to get down to work. Our ministry will follow through the spirit of the 2 sessions and work as a doer and implementer of all the decisions and arrangement of the CPC Central Committee and State Council. Thank you very much.
Now let's invite Minister of General Administration of Sports, Gao Zhidan. Good afternoon, everyone. Now you can feel free to ask questions. Thank you from CMG. Good afternoon, Minister Gao. Last year, the Hangzhou Asian Sports Games and some other games have been staged. Sports has become a popularity among the masses. So what's the plan for this year's sports sector? Thank you. Thank you for your interest in the sports business. Since the 18th National Congress, the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping at its core, pay high attention to the business of sports. And at national level, we decided to develop China into a strong power in sports by 2035, which depicted the blueprint for us in sports sector. And last year, we had sustainable, healthy development of sports business. For example, the whole mass fitness day and the ice and snow season activities and other mass-based sports activities were welcomed nationwide. And the civil society's competition and contests were popular, and the football games have entered into the communities, enriching the offerings of sports games. With the sports offerings, we hope to improve people's livelihood. And also we witnessed the increase of the stadiums. In 2023, per capita area of stadium was about 2.89 square meters. And as to the comparison with 2019, that's an increase of 107%. The games for university students, Universiade, and other games have broken the record in terms of performances. Sports for youngsters were booming, supporting the consumption in the sector, and the Chinese spirit have been heard by more people, and we even contributed to building a bond among the people. All types of goals are being realized. Now, we have 11 years left to hit the target by 2035. We are aware that there are still some weaknesses to be resolved. In different sectors of the sports business, the issues of imbalance remains to be resolved. The mechanisms of sports management may not be adaptive to the new demand of this era, And we even face some new conflict, for example, the lack of innovation. After reform of sports, we had some corruption issue in the football sector, and those fail the expectation of the people and the CPC Central Committee. And in the next step, we will focus on the prioritized issues and the difficult points to speed up the development of building China into a strong sports country. And we must be people-centered in pursuing that goal. And the fundamental target of a 2035 target is to serve the general public. So we will do every bit to meet people's demand for comprehensive development. Sports would be the starting point to build up the national spirit, to strengthen people's body and especially the youngsters. In that way, we will meet people's aspiration for the sports sector. And continuously, we will pursue high-quality development, which will be our top priority. We will try to implement the Health China policy and execute the national strategies like the mass fitness, and we will enrich the activities of sports for the general public by offering more venues for the general public. And we hope to unite together to contribute to the great rejuvenation of China. We will prepare for the Olympics in Milan, and we will try to aggressively develop the sports industry to create a new development landscape and transform the sports sector. That will work together with the campaign of common prosperity and village revitalization. Cultivating people's body and people's mind come together. We will encourage the youngsters to be part of the sports activities to improve their health conditions, and we will also cement our cultural confidence to improve our soft power. And that will facilitate the prosperity and development of sports business. And by the way, they can tell good story in the sports sector and convey more positive energy. Third, reform and innovation are key. We will improve the level of public services and optimize sports governance. We will coordinate the certain sports agencies, the social organizations and government agencies to reform themselves, and we will clarify their functionalities and have more effective management. We will coordinate the market, the government agencies, and the different circles of the society so as to have joint forces to realize the 2035 goal. And we will encourage diversification in the exploration. Different innovative forces will be put together to generate more practices. To build China into a strong sports country, we will also have more party building in the sports sector. And by taking the opportunity of the central inspection and rectification, we will crack down on the corruption behaviors in the sports sector. We will try to solve the issue of corruption in the sports sector and lay a solid political foundation for the 2035 goal. Thank you. Next question.
Newspaper Российская газета. Our recent years, consumption of sports, including winter sports, was witness a boom. So my question is, what is the measure of the General Administration on Sports of China in further promoting the development of the sports industry and related consumption?
Thank you very much. Your question will be translated consecutively.
高局长您好，俄罗斯报记者提问。最近几年，冰雪运动在内的许多体育消费项目，它的消费呈稳定的增长态势，并且十分火爆。那么我的问题是，体育总局在进一步推动体育产业的发展，促进体育消费方面，将会采取哪些举措？谢谢。
好，请高局长来回答这个问题。
Well, thank you for your question. So, the sports industry is a question of concern across the whole world. In recent years, China's sports industry has shown a great momentum of growth. Since 2012, the added value of the sports industry has seen 15% of growth each year. In 2022, the total size of this industry reached 3.3 trillion yuan, and the added value hit 1.3 trillion yuan. So the sports industry is empowering the whole economy in three dimensions. The first is it can support many economic activities. In recent years, many of the cities, they are hosting international competitions which improved the image of the cities, empowered the infrastructure of the cities, and driven their economy. So the number of visitors has been translated into drivers of economy according to a survey. For sports competitions, they will drive a lot of consumption in terms of restaurants and catering, as well as hotels. And the driving force ratio is 1:3. And the University, Chengdu, Nanning, Hangzhou, and Hulunbuir, they have seen a total consumption of more than 130 billion yuan in the sports industry, which was a year-on-year increase of 10%. And then there is this effect of integration. We have been supporting the integration of sports with relevant sectors to cultivate new business models and scenarios and formats of the sports industry. Sports competitions are walking into the grassroots level and villages, and sports industry can truly serve as a platform where e-commerce and all the other business entities can come on board and gently promote local economy. During the Spring Festival, 26 national ski centers have seen an unprecedented number of visitors, and they have seen a year-on-year increase of more than 50%. And then there is this driving force effect. Skating board, sails, and also ski boards have become very popular. Frisbees and rugby are gaining popularity in China as well. During the Spring Festival in Wanning of Hainan, 30 sailing clubs have seen a boom of their business. And in Yunnan, the first outdoor sports event attracted more than 20,000 participants. New sports items are favored by the young generation, and they have driven the rapid development of relevant sectors. Let me also say that in recent years, the sports facility industry in China has transitioned from a traditional manufacturing industry into an industry of creation, into a creative industry, and their international influence has increased dramatically. Although there is a good momentum of development for this industry, we must be mindful of some of the deficiencies. Namely, we need to improve the industrial structure. Sports companies and sports competitions need to have a better brand and marketing influence. And the potential of this industry needs to be further tapped going forward. We're going to follow through the spirit of the China Central Economic Conference and the government work reports. We will actively cultivate new quality productive forces, focusing both on sports competitions and sports facility industry so as to drive high quality growth of the sports industry. First, we will focus on sports competitions and events so as to deliver a number of sports events that are widely participated. And we will also hold more high-level international competitions with global influence. We encourage different localities to engage in different types of grassroots sports activities. And we also aim to flourish the ice and snow sports in a post-Winter Olympic period. And we try to mobilize 300 million people into the winter sports. We will work together with relevant departments to bring sports into shopping malls, into communities, and into all sectors of social life so as to leverage the comprehensive impact of sports. And second, promote the transformation and upgrading of sports-related manufacturing industry. And this means that we're going to optimize their model of organization and production. We encourage sports facility enterprises to deliver customized, tailor-made, high-quality products and services, and introduce more made-in-China brands and products so as to constantly enhance the brand image of made-in-China sports products. And third, consolidate and improve efficient consumption and cultivate more consumption scenarios, improve the financial support mechanism and also the system of consumer rights protection. And we will develop more outdoor activities and set up more destinations for outdoor sports tourism by holding a wide range of very colorful sports events. We will be able to practice the concept that lucid waters and Lost Mountains are invaluable assets, and the ice and snow are also invaluable assets so as to empower greater and better lives going forward. Thank you.
Now let's invite Minister of China National Intellectual Property Administration, Mr. Shen Changyu. Now we open the floor to questions.
好，请北端那位穿黑色上衣拎包的那位女记者。
Thank you. From China Enterprise Daily, Minister Shen, according to government work report, for enterprises with different types of ownership, there must be a sound environment for fair competition. Could you introduce to us about the measures taken to protect IPR for different types of enterprises, including the private enterprises, and what is the development situation of the IPR sector? Thank you. I would love to take this opportunity to thank the media friends for your years of interest in and support of the IPR sector. The question just raised was a critical concern of all enterprises. Strengthening IPR protection is the manner to create favorable business environment. The State Council and the CPC Central Committee pay high attention to that issue. According to President Xi's instructions, strengthening IPR protection is the most important way to improve the system of IPR, and it's a great incentive as well to promote the business environment. And the State Council has come up with different policies. Last year, a new round of IPR institutional reform was unveiled. different policies and regulations were promulgated, working together. And as to the level of IPR protection, it's boosted as well. I have a set of data to share with you. First, last year, the satisfactory ratio about IPR protection was raised to 82, which was a record high. Second, last year, the foreign applicants in terms of invention in China exceeded the number of 900,000, a yearly increase of 4.9%, which is approaching 5%. Last year, the foreign applicants for the trademarks and the number of registration of trademarks was over 1.2 million, an yearly increase of 3.4%, which is a full manifestation about the attention from the foreign enterprises. And those enterprises are confident about IPR protection in China. The third set of data was last year, WIPO mentioned in the Global Innovation Index that China had 24 among the 100 in terms of innovation index, and that was the first time for China to make that achievement. And also in the award ceremony for Global Innovation Award, among the 7 enterprises winning the award, 2 came from China. And that number was also coming as the first place in the world. And the 2 enterprises are both IT companies, showcasing the vitality of innovation in China. This year, according to the requirements of the government work report, we will continue to enhance the level of IPR protection, especially with the foreign invested companies and private enterprises. We will set up such a regular communication channel regularly for those private enterprises and foreign invested companies. We will listen to their suggestions and pursuits so as to come to their help in the field of IPR protection. We will continue to serve the SOEs, private enterprises, and foreign invested companies alike. This year, we will focus on the following measures. First, we will continue to improve the IPR protection system by coming up with certain projects, implementation plan, so as to strengthen the whole IPR protection and create a new landscape for IPR protection. Second, we will improve the laws and regulations in IPR protection. We will comprehensively execute the newly amended regulations of IPR protection. Especially, we will push forward the new round of amendment of the trademark law. We will also set up a protection rule for data protection. Those will pave the way for IPR protection legally. Second, we will also come to the source to protect IPR, which means we will keep improving the quality and efficiency of our review. We will optimize the procedure of our review work for enterprises to better benefit from IPR protection. We will try to maintain the authority in order to ensure stability of IPR protection. Fourth, we will set up certain platforms and mechanisms for IPR protection. For example, we will usher in a grand landscape for IPR protection so as to cover different stages. We will optimize the data distribution and set up some demonstration zones for IPR protection with high quality to offer more cost-effective ways of rights and interests protection of the enterprises that will create a sound business environment. Thank you.
Next question, please. Thank you. I'm with Sichuan Broadcasting Station and Sichuan Observers. To my knowledge, the State Council Office has introduced a special work plan to advance the protection of IPR. Can you tell us more about this work plan? Thank you very much. We have strengthened the commercialization of patents. This will create great impetus to high-quality developments and new quality productive forces. At the end of last year, China had a total of more than 4 million effective invention patents, and we pay close attention to the commercialization of these patents. General Secretary Xi made specific instruction to create the favorable condition for the utilization and commercialization of these patents, and a special campaign was launched by the State Council. As the Intellectual Property Administration of China, we will see to it that this is put on the ground. At the ministerial level, we have established a joint mechanism across different ministries to jointly push for the commercialization of these patents. We have established a special task force to work specifically on this task. And there is a synergy between different ministries, and we have made some important progress. In the government work report this year, it was mentioned that at the end of last year, the overall transaction amount of the technological transaction contracts has increased dramatically, and many of that were invention patents. And this year marks a crucial year of ours. We're going to follow through the spirit of the government work reports and focus on the following areas. First, to streamline the inventory patents of research organizations and universities so as to form a pool of patents that are commercializable, and then coordinate with relevant enterprises to jointly commercialize these patents. Second, practice the industrialization of patents and solve the difficulties of research institutes in commercializing patents, and also the difficulties of enterprises in obtaining patents and technology, so as to cultivate more advanced and sophisticated enterprises on the market. And third, we will practice an open licensing system for patents. This will allow us to reduce the cost of patent transactions and tradings and reduce the cost of commercialization. And last year, after launching this system, we have made significant progress. We have seen a total of more than 17,000 licensings, and this year we're going to put this system in full practice, because it will incentivize enterprises as well as developers and researchers. So that's why we are going to scale up this practice this year. And fourth, we're going to improve the quality of patents. We will look at the efficacy of commercialization to optimize the processes of patent reviews. A sound feedback cycle will be established to consolidate the quality of patents. Thank you very much, Minister.
That was the Ministers Corridor event in which 5 ministers have spoken to the media.
That's right, and now the lawmakers, China's lawmakers, have completed their political agenda for this year's session. And now let's check in the latest with my colleagues Sean Calebs and Ho Na. They're live for us at the venue of the meeting. Hi there, great to see you both. It's been an extremely busy week for you, talking to deputies and members, advisors and lawmakers as well. Share with us your impressions and thoughts on the 2 sessions, please.
Hello to you, Mama. I'm Pandong there in the studio, and we're now standing at the east gate of the Great Hall of the People, as you can see behind me. So the delegates have already left, and it's a wrap for the annual session of the 14th National People's Congress. During the past week, lawmakers has been deliberating, and they have deliberations and discussions on the future development to chart the course for the country's future development. Well, Sean, you've been covering the two sessions. This is your second time to cover the two sessions. I want to get your take from the process of you taking part in China's legislative process. What impressed you most?
Well, to me, it's all very simple to follow. It seems very complex to outsiders. They're not going to know much about two sessions unless they follow China's political system. So for me, it's a chance to come here and see this really from the ground level up. And it began even before the curtain came up on two sessions with the CPPCC's National Committee holding its news conference and kind of giving an indication that modernization was going to be the key moving forward. And then the all-important work report, which really gave a clear blueprint where China wants to go, how it wants to move its economy, moving at a 5% GDP, create 12 million urban jobs, but more importantly, this modernization, the phrase that we've all come to embrace.
So, you know what impressed me most is the government and the top legislature has put so much emphasis on the country's green development, the environmental protection. In the report at the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, it spent a large part of it talking about the legislation in this year on the draft code on environmental protection, which is a combination of all the laws and regulations concerning environmental conservation. So I think that will drive the country's innovation-driven economy to prove the resilience, the growth of the economy.
China clearly wants to grow, and they want to grow in a healthy, environmentally friendly fashion. You talked earlier about the Yellow River, the Yangtze River. There's going to be an effort to protect that moving forward. And I think, as you also said, I believe it's the first time there's been a standing committee on environmental, ecological measures moving forward, which again shows China's importance. If you look at what China's doing now, leader in renewable energy, solar, wind power, leader in the EVs, electric vehicles, that clearly shows the commitment is there, and there's a great appetite for these products internationally as well.
Exactly. There's so many things to reflect on during the week-long time. Of course, lawmakers and political advisors will take their suggestions and proposals back to the grassroots where they came from for future deliberation throughout the year. Well, thank you so much here, and back to you, Mama and Pando, in the studio.
Thank you, Hona and Sean.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Now, for more insight, let's cross live to Professor Joseph Gregory Mahoney in Shanghai. Well, Professor, the National People's Congress has deliberated 7 draft resolutions covering the economy, people's livelihood, law and legislation. Was there anything in particular that caught your interest?
In fact, there are many things that I was happy to see, including plans to address employment concerns, as well as using things like ultra long-term bonds in a targeted way to stimulate economic growth. But, given my research on China's rise as a technological society, what caught my interest especially is the decision to significantly increase investment in scientific research by a reported 10%, along with reports that China will build a $27 billion fund to support domestic chips research and development. Now, these efforts should help China develop its own cutting-edge computer chips and make key breakthroughs in core technologies and the sciences overall. In fact, if these efforts are well managed in the future, we'll probably look back on these policies as a critical turning point, as a tremendous investment in Chinese innovation and ingenuity with clear dividends for economic and technological development. But more to the point, these efforts are absolutely imperative for resisting ongoing U.S. tech decoupling efforts and ensuring China will be able to achieve its goals of national rejuvenation as a fully developed modern socialist nation by 2050.
Thank you very much, Professor Joseph Gregory Mahoney in Shanghai. Now let's go to our studio guest for more insight. So, Mr. Zhu, talking about China's containment of financial risks. What are key messages you've been getting from the recent remarks of the head of China's Financial Regulatory Administration?
Yeah, I think that a top regulator has made it very clear that China is trying very best to ensure that it's not going to enter any kind of systematic financial risk, which is very important. As we have learned from history, I think financial risks and a financial crisis can be later for a disaster for many nations, as it has happened in history. And another thing I think he has also mentioning, I think, the very delicate balance between regulation and innovation. Because normally if you step up the regulation, innovation will wither. Because I mean, you don't want that, because whether you need some kind of financial innovation in order to diffuse the trouble or the risk that's already building up in the financial system. And finally, I think it's very important that we keep in mind that finance is important. I think he has been mentioning that for at least a couple of times. I think financial is the backbone of modern economy. So I think no matter what kind of additional regulation we're trying to impose onto the financial service sectors, it is not to destruct this sector, but to guide it into a better direction, to better serve the real economy.
And in terms of the policy directions set forth by the Chinese authorities, Mr. Escalon, what are some of the items you're looking forward to in terms of trade and investment for foreign enterprises?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think we all took note of the fact that the government has set a very ambitious economic target for the year ahead. And for us, it would be critically important the way that the government goes about reaching that target. Surely there will not be one single factor that will make China reach that target. Export cannot in itself make China reach that. We need the Chinese consumption engine to start again. And then I think they are right with the focus that was also mentioned by the professor on science and technology, climbing the value ladder, increasing productivity. I think productivity is one of the issues that have been holding the Chinese economy a little bit back. So getting that right also will contribute. And then of course we took encouragement also from the foreign minister, stretching out his hand and talking about expanding further on the visa-free travel program and finding other ways to boost people-to-people engagement. That would be vital, we think, that you also enhance that aspect, people-to-people engagement.
A political, domestic political gathering with important international significance.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing with us your insights throughout the hours. We appreciate your input.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Indeed. And lawmakers have wrapped up the second session of 14th National People's Congress at Great Hall of the People on Monday. It also marks the conclusion of the 2024 two sessions.
That's right, and that's going to do it for our special coverage of this year's two sessions. You're now up to date on China's most important political season. I'm Wang Mengmang in Beijing.
I'm Pan Deng. Thanks for watching and stay tuned.
Goodbye.
Bye.